At a prestigious technology institute, a quiet young janitor pushes his cleaning cart down an empty hallway. Inside the robotics lab, a group of top AI scientists are struggling to solve a billion-dollar algorithm, one that threatens to shut down their entire department. While they panic and prepare for failure, the janitor steps in, studies the board, and solves the problem in just 7 minutes. What no one knows is that he has secretly mastered advanced mathematics for years in silence in the shadows and without anyone ever knowing. Before we go back, let us know where you're watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow I've got something extra special for you. The old clock on the wall of the Acadia Institute of Technology AIT's robotics department showed precisely 1:17 a.m. when Elijah Eli Hayes, a young man of 22, carefully guided his quiet cleaning cart down the long, deserted hallway. What he remained blissfully unaware of, however, was that, just beyond the thick, sound-dampening door of Advanced Robotics Lab 7B5 of the world's most distinguished artificial intelligence specialists were spiraling into a collective abyss of despair. Inside, Dr. Alistair Finch, a man whose usually sharp eyes were now clouded with utter exhaustion, sat with his head buried in his hands, staring blankly at a sprawling whiteboard covered in intricate algorithms that, to an untrained eye, resembled a bewildering collection of arcane symbols. His esteemed colleagues had been confined within those walls, laboring ceaselessly for a grueling 18 hours straight, and yet they found themselves no closer to unraveling the profound and perplexing problem that had relentlessly haunted their every waking moment for the past 4 months. "This is utterly unattainable," Dr. Anya Sharma whispered, her voice barely a tremor in the tense silence as she let her specialized marker clatter onto the sleek, polished desk. "We have meticulously explored every conceivable pathway known to computational science. The Vanguard algorithm is without a shadow of a doubt going to be our professional undoing." The Vanguard algorithm was not merely an advanced coding challenge. It represented the veritable holy grail of complex AI architecture, a mind-bending enigma that had steadfastly defied the attempts of every brilliant mind audacious enough to confront it since its mysterious emergence in a groundbreaking research paper a full 8 months prior. Esteemed institutions across the globe had painstakingly assembled elite teams, dedicating vast resources to its resolution. The first university, or in this case, the first institute to decisively crack its intricate code, stood to gain not only a colossal $15 million research grant, but also an unparalleled level of international acclaim and recognition. Far more critically for AIT, a failure to demonstrate significant tangible progress would inevitably lead to the complete and immediate withdrawal of their entire robotics department's substantial funding. Alistair, his tired eyes burning from the relentless strain, rubbed them slowly and once more directed his gaze to the daunting algorithm. The sprawling lines of code and esoteric symbols seemed to possess an almost sentient quality, openly mocking his considerable intellect from the stark white surface of the board. At a relatively young 35, he was widely celebrated as a true prodigy in his specialized field, having earned his prestigious PhD from Caltech and having numerous groundbreaking papers published in the most highly regarded academic journals. Yet this particular problem had the unsettling effect of making him feel like a wide-eyed first-year undergraduate student all over again. "Perhaps it is time we admitted defeat for the night," softly suggested Dr. Ben Carter, the most senior and sagacious member of their beleaguered team. "A fresh perspective infused with the clarity of morning might offer the illumination we so desperately seek. Tomorrow, my dear colleagues, marks the unforgiving deadline for our quarterly progress report." Alistair countered, his voice grim and heavy with the weight of impending doom. "If we fail to present something concrete, something demonstrably impactful to the formidable Institute board, they will, without a moment's hesitation, sever our funding entirely and divert those precious resources to the rapidly expanding bioengineering division." The immense burden of this profound responsibility pressed down upon each of them a suffocating weight. The robotics department in its expansive entirety employed nearly 40 individuals, including a significant number of promising graduate students whose entire academic futures were inextricably linked to the continuation of this vital research. Families would undoubtedly suffer, and cherished dreams carefully nurtured over years would be unceremoniously crushed, all because of one seemingly unyielding and impossible algorithm. As the professors with heavy hearts and weary steps began to gather their scattered papers and prepare for their reluctant departure, not one of them observed the quiet young man in the humble blue uniform who had been diligently mopping the long stretches of hallway outside their perpetually closed classroom door. Eli, with an almost uncanny perception, had absorbed every single word through the surprisingly thin walls. He understood far more than they could possibly fathom. Elijah Hayes was 22 years old and had been quietly cleaning the extensive buildings of AIT for the past 4 years. Each successive night, he traversed these same deserted halls in solitary silence, emptying countless trash receptacles and meticulously wiping down every conceivable surface while the entire academic world lay in peaceful slumber. Most people lost in their own intellectual pursuits barely registered his unassuming presence. Students and professors alike seemed to effortlessly look right through him, treating him as though he were merely an inert fixture, an unthinking part of the impersonal institutional furniture. But Eli, unbeknownst to them all, harbored a profound secret one that held the power to utterly astound anyone who genuinely knew him. While he performed his mundane cleaning duties, he listened intently. While he diligently worked, he learned voraciously, and while others succumbed to the embrace of sleep, he tirelessly solved complex problems that the vast majority of people could not even begin to comprehend. Growing up amidst the challenging realities of the city's most impoverished neighborhood, Eli had always possessed an undeniable difference. While other children his age reveled in boisterous games, he found himself drawn to the intricate beauty of patterns in virtually everything that surrounded him. He could, with an almost preternatural accuracy, predict which traffic light would next cycle to green, effortlessly calculate the precise amount of change due before cashiers had even finished counting, and unravel complex puzzles that left even astute adults scratching their heads in bewildered frustration. His elementary school teachers, astute observers of innate talent, had recognized his extraordinary gift early on. This young man possesses a truly extraordinary mind. His perceptive fifth-grade teacher had once confided to his struggling single mother he should without question be enrolled in advanced academic programs, perhaps even skipping several grades. But life, as it so often does in the unforgiving crucible of poverty, had drastically different, far more demanding plans. Eli's mother, a resilient woman, worked tirelessly at 4 jobs just to barely maintain their meager, cramped apartment, and there was simply no financial means for any specialized programs or additional tutoring. When Eli's father, a fleeting presence, abruptly vanished from their lives when Eli was a tender 11 years old, irrevocably taking with him what little semblance of stability they possessed, mathematics became his most profound escape from the harsh, unrelenting grip of reality. He meticulously taught himself advanced concepts, devouring arcane library books, effortlessly solving complex calculus problems, while his bewildered classmates struggled mightily with even the most basic principles of algebra. By the time he reached high school, he was secretly and meticulously working his way through highly advanced university-level engineering mathematics textbooks. But without proper guidance, without genuine opportunities, his extraordinary talents remained largely undiscovered, tragically hidden from the world. After graduating from high school with an impeccable record of perfect grades that to his quiet chagrin seemed to go entirely unnoticed by everyone around him, Eli reluctantly accepted the cleaning position at AIT. It was by any measure far from a glamorous occupation, but it reliably paid the bills and, more importantly, afforded him something truly invaluable: unfettered access to one of the most advanced robotics and AI departments in the entire country. Every solitary night, as he meticulously cleaned classrooms and faculty offices, Eli absorbed knowledge with the voracious appetite of a parched sponge. He painstakingly memorized complex equations and intricate algorithms left scrawled on whiteboards, meticulously read through discarded research papers left casually on desks, and intently listened to groundbreaking lectures through barely ajar classroom doors. The distinguished professors, completely absorbed in their lofty academic pursuits, never once suspected that they had their most dedicated, most brilliant, and utterly invisible student diligently working all around them. As Alistair Finch and his dispirited team finally exited Advanced Robotics Lab 7B that fateful night, Eli, like a silent shadow, entered to commence his nightly cleaning ritual. The expansive room was heavy with the stale scent of lukewarm coffee and the palpable aura of profound desperation. Empty pizza boxes and countless crumpled papers, monuments to frustration, littered every available surface. The imposing whiteboard, a silent witness to their struggles, was covered in layer upon layer of intricate algorithms, bewildering arrows, and countless crossed-out attempts. Eli began his work with his characteristic methodical precision, emptying overflowing trash cans and diligently wiping down every desk. But his eyes, drawn by an irresistible magnetic force, kept returning to the whiteboard. The Vanguard algorithm stared back at him, an unblinking challenge, surrounded by the meticulously documented yet ultimately failed attempts of some of the world's most brilliant minds. He had been assiduously following their halting progress for many weeks, observing through the translucent windows their increasingly frantic struggles with approaches that seemed logically sound but consistently led to exasperating dead ends. He had witnessed with a quiet empathy their burgeoning frustration and the gradual soul-crushing erosion of their hope. What they, in their academic tunnel vision, utterly failed to comprehend was that they were contemplating something beautifully simple with an unnecessary and overwhelming complexity. As Eli, with a gentle touch, cleaned the chalk dust from the erasers, he found himself standing directly in front of the formidable algorithm. His extraordinary mind, with an almost autonomous precision, began to analyze instinctively, discerning intricate patterns that others blinded by their preconceived notions had tragically overlooked. The elusive solution was not cunningly concealed within esoteric theorems or arcane advanced techniques. It was undeniably right there, starkly elegant and strikingly obvious, like a haunting melody that had been playing unheard all along. Without a moment's conscious deliberation, Eli picked up a discarded piece of chalk. His hand, guided by an unwavering certainty, glided across a small, previously untouched corner of the board, meticulously writing numbers and symbols with the profound confidence of someone who had perceived this precise pattern 1,000 times before. The complex Vanguard algorithm gracefully unfolded before him like a rare and exquisite flower blooming in slow motion, each successive step leading with an undeniable inherent logic directly to the next. In less than a fleeting 7 minutes, he had meticulously transcribed what the world's foremost AI specialists could not decipher in 4 months. The complete, unequivocally correct solution to the Vanguard algorithm rested quietly, almost humbly, in the bottom corner of the board, patiently waiting to fundamentally alter everything. Eli stepped back, a tremor running through him, and gazed at what his hand had wrought. His heart, a frantic drum against his ribs, pounded with the overwhelming realization of the profound act he had just accomplished. This was not merely another challenging problem he had effortlessly solved. This was the problem, the singular enigma that held the power to either forge or irrevocably shatter illustrious careers that could fundamentally reshape the entire future trajectory of advanced robotics research. He slowly surveyed the now silent and empty classroom, a sudden chilling wave of fear washing over him. What he wondered with growing trepidation would inevitably transpire if someone were to discover his miraculously simple solution. Would they, in their academic arrogance, ever truly believe that a humble cleaning young man had succeeded where their most esteemed professors had so spectacularly failed? Would they, with cynical suspicion, perhaps conclude that he had somehow gained an unfair advantage, that he had cheated? But as he reluctantly prepared to erase his profound work, Eli's thoughts drifted to the utterly exhausted, worried countenance of Dr. Finch, to the anxious graduate students who might tragically lose their vital funding, to the countless families whose livelihoods were precariously dependent on the continued existence of this very department. His elegantly simple solution, he realized with a surge of quiet determination, possessed the power to save all of them. He deliberately left the telltale chalk dust clinging to his fingers and quietly, almost reverently completed his cleaning routine for the room. Tomorrow morning, he knew with a deep certainty, would bring forth answers to questions that had haunted the entire world of advanced computational science. And somewhere in the furthest recesses of his extraordinary mind, Eli pondered with a burgeoning sense of wonder if his quiet, unassuming life was irrevocably destined to change forever. The impossible, he reflected with a profound sense of satisfaction, had been rendered possible by a simple piece of chalk and a truly brilliant mind that until now nobody even knew existed. Dr. Alistair Finch arrived at the Institute at an ungodly 5:45 a.m., a full 3 hours earlier than his customary arrival time. He had barely managed to snatch a few fitful hours of sleep, his mind relentlessly churning over the vexing Vanguard algorithm like a stubbornly broken record. Today, he knew with a crushing certainty, was the day he would be forced to face the imposing Institute board and with a heavy heart articulate precisely why the robotics department deserved to retain its crucial funding, despite having made absolutely zero discernible progress on the most paramount problem of their illustrious careers. He traversed the empty, echoing hallways with heavy, dragging steps, the steaming coffee in his hand growing steadily colder with each passing moment. The stark morning light streaming unforgivingly through the tall windows felt harsh and utterly without mercy. In a mere few hours, he mused with a profound sense of melancholy this very building might no longer serve as his academic sanctuary, his intellectual home. Alistair, with a sigh of weary resignation, pushed open the heavy door to Advanced Robotics Lab 7B and came to an abrupt, breathless halt. There, nestled humbly in the bottom right corner of the expansive whiteboard, meticulously written in simple chalk, was something that caused his weary heart to skip an astonishing beat. Numbers and intricate symbols meticulously arranged in a sequence that seemed almost too perfectly elegant to be truly real, leaped out at him. His eyes, wide with disbelief, meticulously traced the work from its unassuming beginning to its elegant conclusion, and with each successive line his pulse quickened to an almost frantic rhythm. "No way," he whispered to himself, his voice barely audible as his coffee cup slipped from his nerveless fingers. The sharp, resonant sound of ceramic shattering on the polished floor echoed eerily through the empty room. But Alistair, utterly consumed by the astonishing sight before him, failed to even register it. He was entirely absorbed in the miraculous vision unfolding before his eyes. The solution, he realized with a gasp, was breathtaking in its profound simplicity. Whoever, by some unfathomable act of genius, had meticulously transcribed it, had adopted an approach that not a single one of their collective world-class minds had ever once considered. They had treated the algorithm not as a convoluted theorem demanding highly advanced computational techniques, but rather with an intuitive brilliance as a pure pattern recognition problem. The mathematical reasoning underpinning it was utterly flawless, each step building with an inherent logical progression naturally upon the previous one. Alistair, his hands trembling violently with a mixture of overwhelming excitement and disbelief, pulled out his gleaming phone and began frantically capturing image after image of the whiteboard. Then, with a newfound surge of energy, he commenced the arduous task of manually verifying the work, painstakingly plugging numbers into his calculator and meticulously running through the intricate logic step by laborious step. Everything, he marveled, held up with an unwavering perfection. "This is impossible," he articulated aloud, his voice tinged with lingering awe, but the irrefutable evidence, luminous and undeniable, stood resolutely before him. Some unknown savant had indeed solved the Vanguard algorithm, and they had achieved it with an approach so elegantly simple that it bordered on sheer genius. His phone, a sudden jolt, buzzed with an incoming call from Dr. Sharma. "Alistair, please, for the love of all that is logical, tell me you possess some semblance of good news for the board meeting," she pleaded, her voice laced with desperation, without even a perfunctory greeting. "Anya, you along with Ben and the others need to get yourselves down to Advanced Robotics Lab 7B right this very instant." Alistair commanded, his voice trembling with barely contained excitement. "You are truly not going to believe the miraculous sight that awaits you." "What on earth is amiss? Your voice sounds positively unhinged." Dr. Sharma countered, her alarm palpable. "Nothing, my dear Anya, is amiss. In fact, everything, absolutely everything, is resoundingly right. Just get here, now." Within a mere 20 minutes, the entire beleaguered robotics team was crowded shoulder to shoulder around the astonishing whiteboard, staring at the solution in a state of collective stunned silence. Dr. Sharma, ever the pragmatist, was the first to articulate the burning question on everyone's mind. "Who in the name of all that is rational wrote this?" she breathed. "That, my dear colleagues, is precisely what we must now endeavor to ascertain," Alistair replied, his gaze still fixed on the elegant solution. "But first, let us, for the sake of academic rigor, ensure its absolute correctness. For the subsequent hour, they meticulously worked in concert, verifying every single aspect of the miraculous solution. They ran it through advanced computer programs, meticulously cross-referenced it against known computational principles, and exhaustively tested it with a myriad of different variables. No matter the analytical approach they employed, the answer remained with an unyielding consistency, immutably solid. This is profoundly revolutionary, Dr. Ben Carter uttered quietly, his voice filled with a reverence bordering on awe. This novel approach could fundamentally alter how we conceptualize and interact with entire categories of AI problems. But who in the name of logic could possibly have accomplished such a feat? Dr. Sharma persisted, her brow furrowed in thought. The entire building was securely locked. Security by standard protocol would possess meticulous records of anyone entering after hours. Alistair was already reaching for his phone, his fingers flying across the keypad. "This is Professor Finch from the robotics department," he stated, his voice now crisp and authoritative. "I urgently require access to the security footage from Advanced Robotics Lab 7B from approximately 11:00 p.m. last night until 6:00 a.m. this morning." The security guard on duty, a placid individual named Gary, sounded momentarily bewildered but readily offered his assistance. "I can certainly retrieve that for you, Professor. Kindly allow me a few minutes to access the comprehensive system." As they anxiously waited, the professors, an assembly of brilliant minds, stood clustered around the whiteboard, like seasoned detectives at the scene of a perplexing crime. The handwriting they observed was remarkably neat, yet it notably lacked the characteristic academic flourishes that inevitably developed from years of meticulously transcribing complex equations and algorithms. The chalkwork, though undeniably confident in its execution, was strangely humble, tucked away discreetly in a forgotten corner, as if the mysterious writer had harbored no desire whatsoever to disrupt the existing failed work already adorning the board. Whoever perpetrated this magnificent act possesses an undeniably extraordinary mind. Alistair mused aloud, his voice filled with admiration. "This transcends mere mathematical knowledge. This, my dear friends, is profound mathematical intuition operating at its absolute zenith," the security guard called back within the hour. "Professor Finch, I have the footage prepared and ready for your viewing. You are welcome to come down to the security office, or I can dispatch someone up to your location with a laptop." "Send someone up, please," Alistair replied, his urgency palpable. "This matter is of the utmost importance." 10 minutes later, a young, eager security officer, a fresh-faced recruit named Marcus, arrived bearing a laptop that contained the previous night's meticulously recorded footage. The esteemed professors, their curiosity piqued, gathered closely around the small screen as Marcus expeditiously fast-forwarded through countless hours of eerily empty classroom footage. "There," Dr. Sharma exclaimed, her finger jabbing emphatically at the screen. "Someone is entering." The digital timestamp, a precise indicator of time, read 12:15 a.m. A solitary figure clad in a utilitarian blue cleaning uniform entered the spacious classroom, diligently pushing a cart laden with various supplies. The individual moved with an unhurried, almost practiced efficiency around the room, emptying overflowing trash receptacles and meticulously wiping down the various surfaces. "It's merely the cleaning young man," the security officer stated, his voice flat with routine. "He routinely traverses this section of the building every night around this particular time." But Alistair, his gaze now sharp and singularly focused, was observing with a far greater intensity. At precisely 12:47 a.m., the cleaning young man approached the imposing whiteboard. He stood there motionless for several long minutes, his head tilted slightly, meticulously studying the intricate algorithms. Then, with an almost startling nonchalance, he picked up a piece of chalk. "Stop the video," Alistair commanded, his voice urgent and strained. "Go back and meticulously replay that precise part again." They watched, utterly transfixed and speechless with astonishment, as the young man in the humble blue uniform meticulously transcribed the complete flawless solution to the Vanguard algorithm in less than a mere 7 minutes. His movements were imbued with an undeniable confidence and a remarkable precision, as if he were simply copying something he had long since memorized rather than painstakingly working through a profoundly complex problem for the very first time. "That's simply beyond comprehension," Dr. Sharma breathed, her voice filled with disbelief. "He's a cleaning young man. He's a genius." Alistair immediately corrected, his voice firm and unwavering. Do we by any chance know his name? The security officer, after a moment's pause, consulted his digital records. Elijah Hayes. He's been working here for 4 years. Clean record, never once missed a single shift. Absolutely no complaints against his performance. Alistair felt something unfamiliar stirring profoundly within his chest, a sensation he hadn't experienced in many years. It was a wave of genuine, exhilarating excitement concerning a profound mystery that for once had absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with algorithms or complex theorems. This young man, this Elijah Hayes, had in one astonishing act just solved a problem that had utterly stumped the most brilliant artificial intelligence minds in the entire world. And he had accomplished this incredible feat while meticulously mopping floors and diligently emptying trash receptacles. "We must by all means find him," he declared, his voice ringing with conviction. "He typically works the night shift," the security officer explained patiently. "Comes in around 10:00 p.m. and works until 6:00 a.m. You've in all likelihood just missed him, Professor." Alistair glanced at his watch. It was now 8:30 a.m. In a mere 6 hours, he would be compelled to face the formidable Institute board. But now, instead of the crushing indignity of admitting utter failure, he would be presenting nothing less than the awe-inspiring solution to the Vanguard algorithm. And far more importantly, he would be introducing them all to the most incredibly unlikely, yet undeniably brilliant computational genius any of them had ever had the privilege of encountering. "I require his complete contact information," Alistair stated, his voice resolute. "We must under no circumstances talk to him before tonight's meeting." As the security officer meticulously retrieved Eli's employment records, Alistair found his mind inexplicably wandering, consumed by a profound curiosity about the enigmatic young man who had so singularly changed everything with a mere piece of chalk. Who, he wondered with an almost childlike wonder, was Elijah Hayes? How, by what unfathomable means had he attained such a transcendent level of mathematical and computational mastery? And why, for the love of all that was logical, was he diligently cleaning buildings instead of inspiring minds within the hallowed halls of academia? The early morning sun, now a benevolent presence, streamed generously through the classroom windows, illuminating the profound solution on the whiteboard like a meticulously placed spotlight on a grand stage. In just a few fleeting hours, he knew, with absolute certainty, this algorithm would make banner headlines around the world. The entire computational science community would be abuzz with a mixture of overwhelming excitement and insatiable curiosity. But Alistair, with a newfound wisdom, understood deeply that the true underlying story was not merely the solution itself. It was, in its profound essence, the brilliant young man who had so effortlessly written it. It was the hidden genius who had been silently walking these very halls for 4 long years without a single soul truly noticing his extraordinary, unparalleled gift. He looked intently at the residential address meticulously listed on Eli's employment file and made a monumental decision, one that he instinctively knew would irrevocably alter both of their lives forever. "I am going to find him," he declared, his voice brimming with a quiet determination. Dr. Alistair Finch navigated his sleek, modern car through the narrow, winding streets of Eastbridge, a humble neighborhood he had remarkably never once visited, despite having resided in the same sprawling city for a full 6 years. The stark, almost jarring contrast between the meticulously manicured lawns and stately historic brick buildings of the Institute District and the evident wear of economic hardship reflected in its faded storefronts and uneven patched sidewalks of this area was deeply striking. He slowly pulled up to a small, unassuming apartment complex that had undeniably seen better days, meticulously cross-referencing the address on his phone against the building numbers, Unit 3C. His heart, a frantic drum in his chest, raced with a potent mixture of exhilarating excitement and profound nervousness. How, he pondered with a touch of anxiety, does one even begin to approach an individual whose entire life you are poised to irrevocably turn upside down? Alistair ascended the creaking stairs to the 3rd floor and with a gentle rap knocked on the door, clearly marked 3C. After a long, unnerving moment of silence, he distinctly heard the soft sound of footsteps from within. "Who is it?" came a young man's voice, cautious and undeniably weary. "Mr. Hayes, my name is Alistair Finch. I am a professor at the Acadia Institute of Technology. I am here because I need to discuss something of immense importance with you." There was a protracted, unnerving pause. Alistair could clearly discern movement within the apartment, yet the door remained stubbornly closed. "I do not know any professors," Eli's voice stated muffled through the thick door. "Are you absolutely certain you have the correct person? You are employed in the robotics department meticulously cleaning the advanced robotics labs. Last night you were specifically in Lab 7B. The silence that followed was so profoundly complete that Alistair found himself momentarily wondering if the young man had simply turned and walked away from the door. He was about to knock once more when he distinctly heard the soft mechanical sound of locks slowly turning. The door, with a gentle creak, opened just wide enough to reveal a young man with remarkably intelligent deep brown eyes and a neatly trimmed fade haircut. He was casually dressed in jeans and a simple t-shirt, and Alistair could clearly discern the profound weariness etched onto his expressive face. "What do you want?" Eli asked directly, his voice quiet but firm. "I wish to speak with you about the algorithm you so eloquently solved last night." Eli's already pale face visibly drained of what little color it possessed. For a brief, agonizing moment, Alistair genuinely believed he might slam the door shut in his face. Instead, with a silent grace, he stepped back, opening the door wider. "You had better come in," he stated quietly, his voice barely a whisper. Eli's apartment was undeniably small but maintained with an almost meticulous cleanliness. The modest living room contained a well-worn sofa, a small antiquated television, and something that caused Alistair's breath to momentarily catch in his throat. An entire wall from floor to ceiling was completely covered with bookshelves, meticulously filled to overflowing with weighty mathematics textbooks, various computational journals, and countless research papers. Advanced calculus, number theory, topology, abstract algebra, discrete mathematics. The sheer breadth and depth of the collection would have been profoundly impressive in even the most dedicated graduate student's office. "You possess quite a remarkable library," Alistair remarked, endeavoring to maintain a casual, unperturbed tone. "I find great enjoyment in reading," Eli replied, settling gracefully into a worn armchair positioned directly across from the sofa. "Now, what precisely is this about? I assure you I have done nothing wrong." "Wrong," Alistair echoed, leaning forward slightly. "Mr. Hayes Eli, you have by all accounts accomplished something truly extraordinary. That algorithm you so effortlessly solved last night, do you genuinely comprehend the profound significance of its meaning?" Eli looked down at his hands, his gaze fixed on them. "I observed all of you diligently working on it for weeks on end," he confessed quietly. "You all appeared increasingly frustrated. I simply thought perhaps I could offer some assistance." "Assistance," Alistair repeated, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and disbelief. "Eli, that algorithm has for months utterly stumped the most brilliant computational scientists in the entire world. Teams at MIT, Stanford, Oxford, Cambridge, everyone without exception has been tirelessly working on it. And you, a cleaning young man, solved it in a mere 7 minutes while meticulously mopping a floor. It wasn't that exceedingly complicated once one discerned the inherent pattern," Eli stated quietly, his voice devoid of any boastfulness. "You were all, quite honestly, overthinking it far too much." Alistair stared at him in utter amazement. His casual, almost dismissive assessment of a world-class mathematical achievement was both profoundly humbling and utterly astounding. "Where by what miraculous means did you acquire such a profound knowledge of mathematics and computational theory?" he asked, his voice filled with an almost desperate curiosity. "Books mostly. The local library when I was much younger, then the Institute bookstore when I commenced working here. Occasionally I would quietly listen to lectures when I was cleaning nearby classrooms." "But you never at any point undertook formal classes, no degrees." Eli shook his head slowly. "Couldn't afford college. Had to commence working immediately after high school to help my mom with the never-ending bills." Alistair felt a crushing weight settle heavily in his chest as he began, with a growing sense of despair, to comprehend the sheer magnitude of the wasted potential sitting quietly before him. Here, he realized, was an individual possessing mathematical intuition that the vast majority of people could only ever dream of, and yet he had remained utterly invisible to the entire academic world for many, many years. "Eli, what you accomplished last night, it is destined to irrevocably alter everything," Alistair declared, his voice filled with certainty. "The Institute, I assure you, will be desperate to meet you. The entire computational science community will be clamoring to know precisely who you are." Fear, stark and palpable, flickered briefly across Eli's expressive face. "I do not desire attention. I merely wish to diligently perform my job and be left in peace," he stated, his voice quiet. "But you possess the capacity to achieve so much more than merely cleaning buildings," Alistair insisted, his voice passionate. "With your extraordinary abilities, you could be teaching, conducting groundbreaking research, making profound discoveries that revolutionize the entire world." "Look around you, Professor Finch," Eli countered, gesturing with a sweep of his hand to his modest apartment. "This, Professor, is my entire world. I simply do not belong in yours. You solved an algorithm that I, along with some of the best minds at MIT and Stanford, could not solve." Alistair retorted, his voice unwavering. "You, Eli, absolutely belong in my world." Eli, with a graceful movement, stood up and walked deliberately to his bookshelf, his fingers tenderly tracing the spines of the well-worn textbooks. "You wish to know a startling truth?" he asked, his voice low. "I have been effortlessly solving all of your homework problems for the past 4 years. Not merely yours, but Dr. Sharma's, Dr. Carter's. All of them. When students carelessly leave their assignments in the trash, I retrieve them, take them home, and diligently work through them. Most of the time, the students ironically got them wrong." Alistair felt his jaw drop open in sheer disbelief. "You have been doing this for 4 years, he stammered. "It is merely a source of enjoyment for me, much like completing crossword puzzles, but I never once imagined anyone would ever notice," Eli confessed. "Well, Eli, they are about to notice, and in a truly monumental way. In precisely 2 hours, I am scheduled to present your brilliant solution to the Institute Board. This, Eli, is going to unequivocally save our entire department. You, Eli, are going to become famous." The color, with a chilling speed, drained completely from Eli's face. "You cannot under any circumstances tell them it was me," he whispered, his voice laced with desperation. "What, why not?" Alistair demanded, utterly bewildered. "Because I am nobody. I'm a mere cleaning young man who did not even complete college. No one will ever believe it. They will, without a doubt, believe I cheated somehow, or that someone else, some unseen collaborator, truly solved it." Alistair, with a decisive stride, stood up and walked directly over to where Eli stood, rigid with fear, by the bookshelf. "Eli, look at me," he commanded gently. "You are not nobody. You are without question one of the most brilliant computational mathematicians I have ever had the privilege of encountering, and I have, I assure you, encountered a great many of them. Brilliant computational mathematicians. Professor possess PhDs from prestigious institutions. They diligently publish groundbreaking papers and deliver compelling lectures. They do not, with all due respect, mop floors for a living," Eli retorted, his voice laced with a bitter cynicism. "Some of history's greatest mathematical minds were entirely self-taught. Ramanujan, one of the most profoundly genius mathematicians who ever lived, possessed almost no formal training whatsoever. He was discovered quite astonishingly working as a clerk in India. That professor was fundamentally different. That transpired a very long time ago," Eli insisted, shaking his head. "Intelligence, Eli, cares not for degrees or social backgrounds. It simply exists undeniable and pure. And you, my dear Eli, possess it in unparalleled abundance." Eli turned away from him, his gaze lost in contemplation as he stared out the small, grimy window that overlooked the bustling street. "What will happen, Professor, if I acquiesce? If I permit you to tell them about me, everything I know will irrevocably change. The Institute, I can guarantee, will be eager to offer you incredible opportunities. Full scholarships research positions, a genuine chance to formally study computational science. You could, Eli, finally have the education you so profoundly deserve." "And what will transpire if they simply refuse to believe it?" Eli questioned, his voice filled with a deep-seated apprehension. "What will happen if they, in their ingrained prejudice, believe that a young black man from Eastbridge could not possibly solve something their eminent professors could not?" Alistair felt the immense weight of his words, a crushing realization of the deeply ingrained biases that pervaded their world. He knew with a painful certainty that Eli was entirely justified in his profound concerns. Academia, for all its enlightened pretensions, could indeed be fiercely prejudiced and rigidly elitist. But he also knew, with an unwavering conviction, that brilliance of Eli's magnitude once glimpsed could not possibly be ignored forever. "Then," he stated simply, his voice firm, "we prove them unequivocally wrong. We show them with undeniable clarity precisely who Elijah Hayes truly is." Eli remained quiet for a protracted period, lost in a profound internal struggle. Alistair could clearly discern the profound conflict playing out across his expressive face, hope warring fiercely with deep-seated fear, cherished dreams battling against harsh practical concerns. Finally, with a deep sigh, he turned back to Alistair. "If I agree to this, Professor, if I permit you to tell them about me, will you with unwavering resolve help me? Will you ensure that I do not become utterly lost in all the impending attention? I promise, Eli." Alistair affirmed, his voice imbued with a sincerity more profound than he had ever felt in his entire life. "Okay," Eli said quietly, his decision made. "Tell them." As Alistair exited Eli's humble apartment and drove back to the sprawling institute, his mind remained utterly consumed by the extraordinary young man he had just encountered. Elijah Hayes was within mere hours poised to become the most renowned individual in the realm of computational science, and his life, Alistair knew with certainty, would never ever be the same. But something else, something far more profound was quietly unfolding within Alistair, something he did not yet fully comprehend. In the brief transformative space of one heartfelt conversation, Eli had transcended being merely a fascinating computational mystery to be solved. He had, with an unexpected force, become someone Alistair felt an undeniable urge to protect, to champion, to know intimately far better. The board meeting was scheduled for a mere 1 hour from now, and Dr. Alistair Finch was about to introduce the world to its newest, most astonishing genius. The Institute board meeting stretched on for a grueling 3 hours and culminated in a spectacle Alistair had never once witnessed before a thunderous standing ovation within the grand conference room of AIT's main administration building. Board members who typically dedicated their meetings to dry discussions of budget cuts and enrollment statistics were now, with an almost childlike enthusiasm, animatedly conversing about global recognition and lucrative research grants. "This is utterly extraordinary, Professor Finch," declared President Julian Vance, the distinguished Institute president, her voice brimming with barely contained excitement. "The Vanguard algorithm solution will without a doubt place AIT firmly on the global academic map. I am eager to meet this mysterious computational mathematician immediately. He has graciously agreed to meet with us." Alistair replied carefully, his gaze unwavering. "But I wish to prepare you, President Vance. Elijah Hayes might not be what you are expecting. As long as he can impeccably reproduce this remarkable work and demonstrably articulate his profound understanding, Professor Finch, I frankly do not care if he hails from the distant reaches of Mars." President Vance declared with a hearty laugh that to Alistair's ears did not strike him as particularly humorous. By evening, hushed whispers of the incredible discovery had begun to ripple throughout the entire robotics department. Graduate students huddled in small, excited groups, murmuring in hushed tones about the enigmatic solution that had miraculously materialized overnight. Professors, their voices tinged with a mixture of disbelief and wonder, frantically called colleagues at other prestigious universities, sharing tantalizing photos of the whiteboard and speculating wildly about the identity of the individual who could possibly have penned such a masterpiece. Eli arrived for his regular shift at 10:00 p.m. As he had done countless times before, diligently pushing his cleaning cart through the same familiar hallway he had traversed for 4 long years. But tonight he instinctively felt was profoundly different. There was an almost palpable electric energy permeating the entire building, a low, excited buzz that seemed to follow him like a sentient shadow as he moved methodically from room to room. He had spent the entire afternoon enveloped in a state of nervous anticipation, replaying his pivotal conversation with Professor Finch repeatedly in his mind. Had he pondered, made the correct life-altering decision? Was he in his quiet, unassuming existence truly ready for his tranquil life to be utterly inverted? As he entered the main wing of the robotics department, Eli could distinctly hear animated voices emanating from the faculty lounge. The professors, he noted, were once again working late, but this time their voices, no longer strained with frustration, carried an undeniable undercurrent of genuine excitement. "The sheer elegance of the approach is what truly astounds me," he heard Dr. Sharma exclaim, her voice filled with admiration. "Whoever solved this possesses a profoundly different way of perceiving complex computational relationships. I have been consumed by thoughts of it all day." Then came Professor Finch's familiar voice. The solution unequivocally demonstrates an intuitive understanding that one simply cannot acquire from textbooks alone. This individual possesses a truly natural innate gift. Eli felt a distinct flutter, like the nervous beat of a hummingbird's wings deep within his stomach. They were, he realized with a jolt, discussing his work, effusively praising his unique approach, and they had absolutely no idea, not the slightest inkling, that he was standing an invisible presence just outside their door. He continued his cleaning routine, meticulously working his way closer and closer to Advanced Robotics Lab 7B. The now famous algorithm had been meticulously preserved on the whiteboard, his elegant solution now meticulously surrounded by additional notes and verification work that the professors had diligently added throughout the day. Standing once more in front of the board, Eli felt a strange conflicting mixture of overwhelming pride and a profound lingering fear. His unassuming handwriting, he observed, looked so remarkably small and modest compared to the imposing academic work surrounding it, but it was, he knew with absolute certainty, correct, and it was undeniably his. "Excuse me," a voice startled him. Eli jumped, turning abruptly to find Professor Finch standing quietly in the doorway. He was holding 2 steaming cups of coffee and wearing a remarkably gentle, reassuring smile. "I believed you might appreciate some coffee," he said, offering him one of the warm cups. "It has been, without a doubt, a protracted day for both of us." "Thank you," Eli murmured, accepting the comforting warmth of the cup gratefully. "How, Professor, did the meeting ultimately transpire?" "Better than I could have ever dared to hope," Alistair confessed, a slight smile playing on his lips. "The Institute, I must warn you, is immensely excited to meet you, perhaps even a little too excited." They stood together in a comfortable, companionable silence for a long moment, both gazing intently at the whiteboard. "Are you by any chance having second thoughts?" Alistair asked gently, his voice soft with understanding. "Every single minute, Professor." Eli admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "This morning I was completely invisible. Tomorrow I might inexplicably be famous. That, Professor, represents a monumental change for an individual who finds solace in being left entirely alone. Fame within the realm of computational science is fundamentally different from regular fame, Eli," Alistair explained with a comforting smile. "We are not, I assure you, exactly rock stars. Most people will, in all likelihood, still not know who you are. But the people who truly matter will," Eli retorted, his gaze sweeping around the department. "Within this very building, within this very field, they will expect things from me. They will expect you, Eli, to be brilliant," Alistair stated simply, his voice unwavering, "which you undeniably are." Eli sipped his coffee, his gaze intently studying Alistair's kind, earnest face. He appeared genuinely compassionate, not at all like someone attempting to exploit his monumental discovery for personal gain. But Eli, schooled by the unforgiving realities of his past, had painstakingly learned to exercise caution when it came to trusting people, particularly individuals from worlds vastly different from his own. "May I, Professor, venture to ask you something deeply personal?" he inquired, his voice soft. "Of course," Alistair replied, his gaze unwavering. "Why do you, Professor, care so profoundly? You could have, with absolute ease, merely presented my solution and claimed full credit for its discovery. Why undergo all this arduous trouble to ensure that I receive proper recognition?" Alistair remained quiet for a long moment, meticulously weighing his response. "Because, Eli, to conceal brilliance is in its essence a crime against the very fabric of knowledge itself. Because you, my dear Eli, unequivocally deserve far better than to remain forever invisible. And because," he paused, appearing to struggle with the profound depth of his words, "because what Professor Eli prompted gently. Because, Eli, in the span of a single transformative day, you have irrevocably changed how I conceptualize everything about computational science, about human potential, about the countless individuals we inadvertently overlook every single day. You have, Eli, profoundly made me realize the vast amount of untapped talent that might be quietly walking through these very halls, talent that we in our limited perceptions never once truly perceive." Eli felt a profound warmth, utterly unrelated to the comforting heat of the coffee, slowly spread through his chest. Professor Finch, he realized with a jolt, was gazing at him as if he genuinely mattered, as if his thoughts and feelings were truly important. It was a profoundly new, almost unsettling experience for him. "What transpires next?" he inquired, his voice barely a whisper. Tomorrow, Eli, I will meticulously arrange for you to meet with President Vance, the Institute president, Alistair explained gently. She will undoubtedly wish to verify your extraordinary computational abilities and discuss the various unparalleled opportunities available to you here at AIT. What particular kind of opportunities, Professor Eli? Asked, his mind racing. A full comprehensive scholarship for undergraduate studies with a greatly accelerated pathway to graduate work, research assistant positions, and eventually perhaps even teaching opportunities. The Institute Eli desires to make a profound investment in your future. The sheer possibilities seemed overwhelming and wondrous and terrifying all at once. What if, Professor, I am simply not ready? What if I truly do not belong in formal computational science programs? Eli questioned, his voice laced with doubt. Then, Eli, we will, with unwavering support, ensure you become ready. We will provide tutoring, extensive support, whatever you require. Alistair declared, his voice firm. But Eli, I genuinely do not believe you will require much assistance. Your intuitive understanding is already profoundly beyond that of most graduate students I currently know. As they continued their conversation, Eli began to perceive fleeting glimpses of a future he had never once dared to imagine. He saw himself sitting confidently in lecture halls as a dedicated student rather than merely listening clandestinely through closed doors. He envisioned himself working diligently on groundbreaking research projects instead of merely reading about them in discarded papers. Perhaps he mused with a burgeoning hope he might even genuinely contribute to the very field that had been his secret consuming passion for so many solitary years. There is something else, Eli. Alistair interjected, his voice softening perceptibly. I desire for you to understand that throughout all of this, you are unequivocally not alone. I will be here, Eli, to guide you, to help you navigate every single challenge that lies ahead. The profound way he articulated those words caused Eli to study him with an even greater intensity. There was something in Alistair's expression that transcended mere professional interest or academic mentorship. Something warmer, something undeniably more personal. Why, Professor? Eli asked, simply, his gaze unwavering. Alistair met his eyes directly. Because, Eli, I profoundly care about what ultimately happens to you, not merely as a computational mathematician, but as a person. The moment stretched between them, pregnant with unspoken possibility and a myriad of unanswered questions. Eli felt his heart beating faster, not from nervous anticipation about tomorrow's momentous meeting, but from the dawning realization that something new, something unexpectedly profound was quietly blossoming between him and this kind, compassionate professor who had so irrevocably altered his life in a single astonishing day. I should perhaps finish my cleaning duties, Eli stated softly, not because he particularly wished to, but because he desperately needed quiet time, to process the overwhelming cascade of events that were currently unfolding. Of course, Alistair replied, his voice gentle. But Eli, tomorrow is destined to be a truly wonderful day. You, Eli, are going to be wonderful. As Alistair quietly exited the classroom, Eli stood alone amidst his mop and his racing thoughts. In less than a mere 24 hours, he had transformed from an invisible cleaning young man to a universally recognized genius, to someone who might inexplicably be falling for the very professor who had so brilliantly discovered him. His quiet life, he realized with a profound sense of certainty, was irrevocably over. But as he gazed at his elegant solution, still glowing with an ethereal light on the whiteboard beneath the harsh fluorescent lights, Eli realized with a surge of quiet confidence that he was undeniably ready for whatever came next. The impossible, he reflected, had already transpired. Everything else, he mused, was merely incidental detail. The next morning arrived a gray and drizzly counterpart to Eli's pervasive nervous energy as he stood outside the imposing grand doors of the AIT administration building. He had, for this momentous occasion, traded his utilitarian cleaning uniform for the sole professional outfit he possessed, a crisp navy blue suit he had purchased for job interviews 3 years ago and had, until this moment, never once had an occasion to wear. Alistair met him at the stately entrance, looking impeccably polished in a sharp charcoal suit, but his kind, reassuring eyes immediately put Eli at ease. "Ready for this, Eli?" he inquired, offering him his arm as they walked together toward the gleaming elevator. "No," Eli answered honestly, his voice barely a whisper, "but I am nonetheless here." The elevator ride to the top floor felt like an eternity, each rising number amplifying Eli's apprehension. Eli watched the digital numbers climb steadily and endeavored with a deep breath to calm his furiously racing heart. In a mere few minutes, he knew he would be seated directly across from the formidable Institute president, desperately attempting to prove that he truly belonged in a world that until now had never once included individuals like him. "Remember Eli?" Alistair whispered, his voice a comforting balm, as they stepped off the elevator into the hushed quiet of the executive floor. "You have already accomplished the most difficult part. You brilliantly solved the algorithm. Everything else, my dear Eli, is merely conversation." President Julian Vance's office was precisely what Eli had in his wildest imaginings expected. Its walls were lined with an impressive display of diplomas and various awards, while towering shelves groaned under the weight of countless academic tomes. A massive, imposing desk, seemingly designed to intimidate any visitor, dominated the room. The Institute president herself was a tall, regal woman in her late 50s, with streaks of elegant silver in her dark hair and sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to meticulously evaluate everything they encountered. "Mr. Hayes." President Vance began rising gracefully from her desk to extend a hand for a firm handshake. "It is indeed a profound pleasure to finally meet the computational mathematician who has so profoundly excited our entire department. Thank you for granting me this audience, President Vance," Eli replied, painstakingly attempting to keep his voice steady and unwavering. They settled into comfortable chairs around a small conference table, with Alistair sitting reassuringly beside Eli, a gesture of unwavering support that did not go unnoticed by President Vance. "I shall be direct, Mr. Hayes." The president began, her voice crisp and businesslike. "Your solution to the Vanguard algorithm is without question truly remarkable. However, I need to thoroughly understand how you managed to develop these extraordinary skills while performing your duties as a cleaning contractor." Eli had anticipated this precise question and had spent the entire morning meticulously preparing his comprehensive answer. "I have been diligently studying mathematics and computational theory entirely on my own since I was a very young boy. When I commenced working here at AIT, I gained invaluable access to textbooks and recorded lectures that greatly assisted me in acquiring more advanced concepts," he explained calmly. "Self-taught," President Vance mused, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "That, Mr. Hayes, is profoundly impressive, but it does, I must confess, raise certain questions about potential gaps in your foundational knowledge. Formal mathematical and computational education is not merely about brilliantly solving problems. It is equally about meticulously understanding proofs, mastering proper notation, and diligently adhering to established academic protocols." "I understand, President Vance," Eli stated quietly, feeling the immense weight of his incomplete credentials settling more heavily upon him than ever before. "However," President Vance continued, her voice now softening perceptibly, "genius, Mr. Hayes, is by its very definition genius regardless of the precise manner in which it is acquired. Professor Finch has, with great conviction, suggested that we offer you a full comprehensive scholarship to complete your undergraduate degree with a significantly accelerated path into our distinguished graduate computational science program." Eli felt his breath catch in his throat, his heart pounding. "A full scholarship, Mr. Hayes, means full tuition books and a generous living stipend. In exchange, you would diligently work as a research assistant and provide some valuable assistance with undergraduate tutoring," President Vance explained. "But first, I must, for the sake of institutional due diligence, be absolutely certain of your exceptional abilities." President Vance then produced a folder containing several sheets of paper. "These, Mr. Hayes, are graduate-level problems that our current PhD students are actively working on. I would appreciate it if you would attempt a few of them." Eli looked at the problems, his intelligent eyes rapidly scanning the complex equations and theoretical questions. Some dealt with advanced AI architecture, others with quantum computing, and some with intricate network theory. They were undeniably challenging, but as he meticulously read through them, familiar patterns, elegant and profound, began to unmistakably emerge. "May I please have some paper and a pencil, President Vance?" he inquired politely. For the next hour, Eli worked in concentrated silence, meticulously solving problem after problem, while President Vance and Alistair watched, utterly captivated in silent awe. His approach, they observed, was undeniably unconventional. He did not always, in fact, follow the standard traditional methods taught in graduate courses, but his solutions were without exception elegantly precise and unequivocally correct. Fascinating. President Vance murmured softly as Eli completed the very last problem. Your methodology, Mr. Hayes, is indeed unorthodox, but your profound understanding is unequivocally at the doctoral level. I told you, President Vance, he was exceptional. Alistair interjected, unable to conceal the immense pride swelling within him. President Vance leaned back in her stately chair, studying Eli with a newfound profound respect. Mr. Hayes, I am fully prepared to offer you immediate admission to our undergraduate program with advanced standing. You could potentially complete your bachelor's degree in a remarkably short 2 years and transition directly into graduate work. The room, for a fleeting moment, seemed to spin dizzyingly around Eli. Everything he had ever secretly dreamed of, every cherished aspiration, was being presented to him effortlessly on a gleaming silver platter. I simply do not know what words to utter. Eli stammered, overwhelmed. Say yes, Eli. Alistair urged gently, his voice full of encouragement. There is, however, one final concern, President Vance added, her voice now tinged with a note of caution. The media attention surrounding your groundbreaking Vanguard algorithm solution is already beginning to intensify. Reputable computational science journals are calling incessantly, and there is significant interest from major news outlets. Are you, Mr. Hayes, truly prepared for that unprecedented level of intense scrutiny? Eli felt his stomach clench tightly. What particular kind of scrutiny, President Vance? He inquired, his voice strained. Questions, Mr. Hayes, about your background, your unconventional methods, how you so miraculously developed these extraordinary abilities. Some individuals, I must warn you, may be openly skeptical that someone without any formal training could possibly achieve such a monumental breakthrough. You mean? Eli articulated flatly, his voice devoid of emotion. They will simply believe I cheated. Some might, Mr. Hayes. That is precisely why it is paramount that you continue to demonstrably showcase your remarkable abilities publicly at academic conferences through published papers via rigorous peer review. You will unfortunately need to prove yourself repeatedly, over and over again. President Vance explained candidly. Alistair leaned forward, his expression grave. He should not, President Vance, be compelled to prove himself any more than anyone else would. In an ideal world, Professor Finch, no, President Vance conceded. But Mr. Hayes' story is sufficiently unusual that it will inevitably attract both ardent supporters and persistent doubters. He needs to be fully prepared for both. Eli looked from President Vance to Alistair, feeling the immense weight of overwhelming expectations settling heavily upon his young shoulders. But beneath the pervasive nervousness, a stronger, more resilient emotion stirred within him. It was an exhilarating excitement about finally being able to openly study computational science, to learn directly from the best minds in the field, to actively contribute to the groundbreaking research that profoundly mattered. I wish to do it, he stated quietly, his voice now imbued with a quiet determination. I wish to accept your generous offer. President Vance smiled, a rare, genuine smile that transformed her serious face, the first since the meeting had commenced. Excellent, Mr. Hayes. We shall commence the necessary paperwork immediately. You can formally begin classes next semester, which will afford us ample time to meticulously design a curriculum that perfectly matches your exceptional abilities. As they stood to shake hands, President Vance added, There is one more thing, Mr. Hayes. The Institute would be honored to host a major press conference next week to formally announce your incredible discovery and your official enrollment. It would undoubtedly generate invaluable publicity for both you and for AIT. Eli's burgeoning excitement dimmed slightly, a fleeting shadow. A press conference, he murmured, his voice laced with trepidation. Just a brief statement and a few polite questions from reporters, Mr. Hayes, President Vance assured him. Professor Finch will be there by your side to support you, and he will meticulously prepare you for the types of questions they might potentially ask. After the pivotal meeting, Alistair walked Eli back through the expansive Institute campus, both of them quietly processing the monumental events that had just transpired. How do you feel, Eli? Alistair inquired gently as they settled onto a bench overlooking the bustling quad. Overwhelmed, exhilaratingly excited, absolutely terrified, profoundly happy. All at once, Professor Eli confessed, his voice a mixture of emotions. He gazed intently at the students leisurely walking between classes, soon to be his peers, rather than merely the individuals whose discarded messes he meticulously cleaned up after. "This is truly happening, isn't it?" he whispered almost to himself. "It is indeed truly happening, Eli." Alistair confirmed, his voice soft but firm. "Alistair, may I venture to ask you something deeply personal?" Eli inquired, his voice low. "Of course, Eli." Alistair replied, his gaze unwavering. "Why truly are you assisting me so profoundly? I mean, what do you, in all honesty, stand to gain from all of this?" Alistair remained quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the wisps of clouds drifting lazily across the sky. "Honestly, Eli, at the very beginning, it was purely professional curiosity. You had solved something that deeply fascinated me, and I desperately desired to comprehend the how. But now, he turned to look at Eli directly, his gaze intense. "Now what, Professor?" Eli prompted softly. "Now, Eli, I care deeply about you. Not merely your extraordinary computational abilities, but you as a profound, multifaceted person. Your cherished dreams, your deep-seated fears, your entire future. I ardently desire to witness your unequivocal success, because you, Eli, truly deserve success in every conceivable way." Something warm and comforting bloomed gently within Eli's chest. "That, Professor, sounds like more than just professional interest." He observed a faint smile playing on his lips. "It is, Eli, more than just professional interest." Alistair admitted, his gaze unwavering. "I sincerely hope that is acceptable to you." Eli felt a genuine smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "It is acceptable, Alistair. It is, in fact, far more than acceptable." They sat together in a comfortable, companionable silence, observing the vibrant world unfolding around them. In a single transformative morning, Eli's entire life had irrevocably changed direction. He was remarkably going to be a computational science student at a prestigious institute. He was going to be granted opportunities he had never once dared to dream of. And perhaps, just perhaps, he was going to have something else he had never expected: someone who cared for him for precisely who he was. "What happens now, Alistair?" he inquired softly. "Now, Eli, you gracefully resign from your cleaning job, begin meticulously preparing for your upcoming press conference, and get yourself ready to become the most renowned computational science student in the entire country." Alist Zero Air replied, a playful glint in his eyes. "And what about us? What happens with us?" Eli asked, his voice filled with a hopeful vulnerability. Alistair reached over and gently took his hand. "That, my dear Eli, is entirely up to you, but I would, with all my heart, like to find out." As they slowly walked back toward the parking lot, Eli felt as though he were floating suspended in a dream. The impossible, he realized, had become miraculously possible, and now even more impossible things seemed tantalizingly within his reach. Tomorrow he would commence his new life as a computational science student. But today, he was simply a young man holding hands with a kind man who profoundly believed in him, walking through a world brimming with endless, exhilarating possibilities. The robotics department was abuzz with an almost frantic activity when Eli arrived the following Monday morning, not remarkably as a cleaning young man, but as AIT's newest and most celebrated student. Word of his extraordinary story had like wildfire spread rapidly through academic circles over the weekend, and he could feel countless eyes following his every movement as he walked through the very hallways he had once meticulously cleaned in solitary silence. Alistair had meticulously arranged to meet him in his office to discuss Eli's class schedule and burgeoning research opportunities. As he gently knocked on the door, Eli distinctly heard voices from within. Alistair, it appeared, was already meeting with someone else. "Come in," Alistair called out. Eli opened the door to find Alistair seated across from Dr. Evelyn Reed, the stern gray-haired head of the robotics department. Dr. Reed, an older woman with sharp, discerning features, had always, during Eli's cleaning days, looked straight through him as if he were utterly non-existent. "Ah, Mr. Hayes," Dr. Reed stated, rising with a forced smile to shake his hand. "The young man of the hour. Please do sit down." Eli took the empty chair immediately, sensing an palpable tension permeating the room. Alistair looked noticeably uncomfortable, and Dr. Reed's smile seemed unnervingly forced. "I was just now discussing your unique situation with Alistair, Mr. Hayes," Dr. Reed continued, her voice cool and measured. "While we are all undoubtedly impressed with your groundbreaking solution to the Vanguard algorithm, I harbor certain concerns about proceeding with your enrollment." What particular kind of concerns, Doctor? Reed, Eli inquired, though he harbored a strong suspicion he already knew the answer. Well, Mr. Hayes, it is quite unprecedented for an individual without any formal mathematical or computational training to achieve such a monumental breakthrough. Some of my esteemed colleagues at other universities have been persistently asking pointed questions about how precisely you managed to develop these extraordinary abilities. Alistair leaned forward, his jaw tight with suppressed anger. Evelyn, we have already definitively established that Eli is entirely self-taught. His abilities are unequivocally genuine. Oh, I am not in the slightest questioning his inherent abilities, Alistair, Dr. Reed interjected swiftly, her voice maintaining its calm facade. But you must, Professor, comprehend our delicate position. The computational science community is, as you well know, deeply traditional. When an individual mysteriously appears out of nowhere, boldly claiming to have effortlessly solved a problem that has utterly stumped experts worldwide for months, there are inevitably bound to be profound doubts. I am not claiming anything, Dr. Reed, Eli stated quietly, his voice betraying a hint of hurt. I simply solved the algorithm. Professor Finch possesses the security footage unequivocally proving it was me. Yes, the security footage, Dr. Reed acknowledged, nodding slowly, which Mr. Hayes unequivocally shows you writing the solution, but it does not by any stretch of the imagination prove that you developed it entirely independently. For all we know, Mr. Hayes, someone could have simply provided you with the answer to transcribe onto the board. The unspoken implication struck Eli with the force of a physical blow. You think I cheated? He asked flatly, his voice devoid of emotion. I am not stating that, Mr. Hayes. I am stating that that is precisely what some individuals might think. And until we can definitively prove otherwise, Mr. Hayes, it places the entire department in an exceedingly difficult compromising position. Alistair abruptly stood up his chair, scraping loudly across the floor. This Evelyn is utterly ridiculous. We have meticulously tested his abilities extensively. He solved graduate-level problems directly in front of President Vance and myself. Problems, Alistair, that he could have with sufficient foresight prepared for if he knew he was going to be tested. Dr. Reed replied calmly, her gaze unwavering. Eli felt his face burning fiercely with a mixture of overwhelming anger and profound humiliation. What precisely, Dr. Reed, are you suggesting I undertake to unequivocally prove myself? He asked, his voice laced with a defiant challenge. I believe, Mr. Hayes, that we should, for the sake of institutional integrity, postpone your formal enrollment until after a thorough evaluation by an independent panel of distinguished computational mathematicians. Dr. Reed proposed, her voice unwavering. Individuals, Mr. Hayes, from outside AIT who possess no vested interest whatsoever in your ultimate success or failure. Absolutely not, Evelyn. Alistair interjected firmly, his voice ringing with indignation. Eli has already been officially admitted by the Institute president herself. We are not under any circumstances going to subject him to some kind of baseless mathematical inquisition. Alistair, please be reasonable, Dr. Reed retorted, her voice hardening. This young man's background, you must admit, raises legitimate questions. A cleaning young man who suddenly solves the world's most difficult algorithm. It sounds, Alistair, like something extracted directly from a Hollywood film. His background, Evelyn, is precisely why this is so profoundly remarkable, Alistair argued passionately. Eli represents an immense untapped potential that we in our traditional academic myopia tragically overlook every single day. Instead of celebrating that extraordinary truth, you, Evelyn, wish to tear him down simply because he does not conform to your narrow, preconceived definition of what a computational mathematician should physically resemble. Dr. Reed's expression hardened perceptibly. That Alistair is simply not fair. This Alistair is not in the slightest about his race or his socio-economic background. Isn't it, Evelyn? Alistair challenged, his voice dripping with irony. If Eli were a young white man from a privileged, affluent family who had as a mere hobby solved this algorithm, would you, Evelyn, be demanding additional superfluous proof? The expansive room fell into a sudden, tense silence. Eli looked between the two men, feeling, with a crushing sense of despair, like a valuable prize being fiercely contended over, rather than a living, breathing person possessing his own distinct voice. Stop, he stated quietly, his voice, though soft, cutting through the silence. Both men, startled, turned to look at him. Please, Professor Reed. Professor Finch, stop arguing about me as if I am not even present." He stood up, his movements resolute, and walked directly to the whiteboard in Alistair's office, picking up a marker with a firm grasp. "Dr. Reed, you desire unequivocal proof that I genuinely comprehend mathematics and computational science. Fine. Provide me with a problem. Any problem. Make it, if you wish, as excruciatingly difficult as your intellect can conceive." Dr. Reed looked momentarily surprised, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Hayes, that is truly not necessary." "Yes, it is, Dr. Reed," Eli retorted, turning to face her directly, his gaze unwavering. "You harbor the belief that I am a fraud. You suspect that someone provided me with the answer to the Vanguard algorithm, then prove it. Provide me with something I could not, by any stretch of the imagination, have possibly prepared for." Dr. Reed exchanged a quick, meaningful glance with Alistair, then slowly pulled out her phone. "Very well, Mr. Hayes. I am going to contact my esteemed colleague at Caltech and request that he provide us with a problem that as of yet no one has successfully solved. Something Mr. Hayes from his current active research." For the next few minutes, Dr. Reed spoke quietly and intently with her colleague, while Eli stood, utterly composed, at the whiteboard marker poised in hand. Alistair watched him with a complex mixture of profound admiration and nagging concern. "Are you, Eli, absolutely certain about this?" he inquired softly, his voice barely a whisper. "I am utterly weary of people constantly doubting me, Alistair," Eli replied, his voice firm. "If I am to truly succeed in this demanding field, I must cease hiding from challenges." Dr. Reed slowly ended her phone call. "My colleague, Mr. Hayes, has provided me with a problem from his current research into advanced AI architecture and neural network optimization. It is tangentially related to the perplexing singularity convergence hypothesis, one of the most famous unsolved problems in artificial intelligence. He has, Mr. Hayes, been diligently working on this specific aspect for 2 years without any discernible success." She handed Eli a piece of paper upon which the complex problem was meticulously written out. He read it carefully, his extraordinary mind already beginning, with an almost instinctive fluidity, to work through the intricate computational relationships involved. "How much time do I possess?" he inquired. "Take as much time as you require, Mr. Hayes, but kindly comprehend that if you cannot solve this, it does not in any way signify that you are not exceptionally talented. This, Mr. Hayes, is doctoral-level research that has utterly stumped genuine experts in the field." Eli nodded slowly and turned with quiet determination to the whiteboard. For the subsequent hour, he worked in profoundly concentrated silence, while Alistair and Dr. Reed watched utterly transfixed. He filled one entire board, meticulously erased it, and then commenced anew. His approach, they observed, visibly evolved as he worked each successive attempt, building with an elegant logic upon the profound insights gleaned from the previous one. Finally, with a sigh of completion, he stepped back from the board. "I believe, Dr. Reed, that this in all certainty works," he stated, his voice quiet but firm. Dr. Reed approached the whiteboard and, with a growing sense of anticipation, began meticulously reading through his intricate solution. Her expression as she progressed visibly transformed, shifting gradually from an initial skepticism to a profound surprise, and finally to an almost childlike amazement. This is, in fact, truly brilliant, Mr. Hayes," she stated quietly, her voice tinged with awe. "You have, Mr. Hayes, adopted a completely novel approach, one that not a single one of us had ever once considered." She then pulled out her phone once more and immediately called her Caltech colleague back. "David, you, my friend, urgently need to witness this. The young man I told you about has just, with an almost unbelievable ease, solved your neural network optimization problem. No, David, I am absolutely serious. His method, my dear colleague, is unlike anything I have ever encountered before." As Dr. Reed continued her animated phone conversation, Alistair moved to stand directly beside Eli at the whiteboard. "How do you feel, Eli?" he inquired softly. "Tired," Eli admitted, a faint smile playing on his lips, "but profoundly good. I proved precisely what I needed to prove." Dr. Reed finished her call and turned back to them, a sheepish expression now adorning her face. "Mr. Hayes, I owe you, with all sincerity, a profound apology. Your abilities are unequivocally genuine, and my initial doubts were, without a doubt, utterly unfounded. Thank you, Mr. Hayes." Eli stated simply, his voice calm. More than that, Mr. Hayes, I would like to formally offer you a prestigious position as a research assistant in my very own lab. What you have just accomplished, Mr. Hayes, represents a significant groundbreaking breakthrough in neural network optimization. With your kind permission, Mr. Hayes, I would be honored to assist you in meticulously publishing this remarkable work. Eli looked at Alistair, who nodded encouragingly, a proud smile on his face. I would, Dr. Reed, deeply appreciate that. As they meticulously discussed the intricate details of his new research position and the exciting publication opportunities, Eli felt a palpable shift in how Dr. Reed was now treating him. The dismissive attitude, once so pervasive, had vanished entirely, replaced by a genuine profound respect and a keen professional interest. Later, as he and Alistair walked across the vast campus together, Eli quietly reflected on the monumental events that had just transpired. That Alistair was far more challenging than solving the Vanguard algorithm. He confessed, a sigh escaping his lips. Why Eli? Alistair inquired, his brow furrowed in curiosity. Because Alistair, the algorithm, was solely about mathematics and computational theory. Today, Alistair was about unequivocally proving that I deserve to be taken seriously as a person with my own intellect and worth. Alistair stopped walking abruptly and turned to face him directly. You should not, Eli, ever have to prove that to anyone, ever. Perhaps not Alistair, but I am profoundly glad that I did. Eli replied, a newfound strength in his voice. Now, Alistair, I know with an absolute certainty that I can handle whatever else life chooses to throw my way. They stood together on the Institute quad, surrounded by bustling students and esteemed professors who were slowly but surely becoming Eli's peers rather than the individuals he had once served invisibly. What comes next, Alistair? Eli inquired, his voice filled with a hopeful anticipation. Everything, Eli declared, a brilliant smile illuminating his entire face. Absolutely everything I have ever dared to dream of. And for the very first time since this entire extraordinary adventure had begun, he truly, genuinely believed it was possible. The highly anticipated press conference was meticulously scheduled for Thursday morning in the Institute's grand main auditorium. And by Wednesday evening, Eli found himself with a growing sense of dread, questioning every single decision that had, with an unforeseen trajectory, led him to this monumental moment. He sat in Alistair's spacious office, his gaze fixed on a daunting stack of newspapers and meticulously printed articles that Alistair's diligent assistant had gathered from various computational science journals and major news websites. Listen to this particular one, he stated, his voice tinged with bitterness as he read from a particularly harsh and scathing review. While we applaud the Acadia Institute of Technology's admirable commitment to diversity, we must, with due academic rigor, question whether established academic standards are being precipitously lowered to accommodate simplistic, feel-good narratives. Computational science is simply not a field where noble intentions can, in any conceivable way, substitute for rigorous foundational training. Alistair looked up from his own considerable pile of articles, his jaw tight with barely suppressed anger. That Eli is from Professor Harding at Caltech. He has been undeniably bitter ever since his own department proved incapable of solving the Vanguard algorithm. And this one Professor Eli, continued, his voice heavy with resignation. The computational science community, with judicious foresight, should exercise extreme caution about celebrating what appears to be a mere lucky guess, cunningly disguised as genuine genius. True computational understanding, as we all know, requires years of formal study and rigorous peer review. Eli, stop reading those, Alistair commanded, reaching over to gently but firmly take the papers from his hands. You are merely torturing yourself needlessly. But they are not, Alistair, incorrect about one fundamental truth. Eli stated quietly, his voice laced with vulnerability. I do not, Alistair, possess the formal background. I am not intimately familiar with all the established protocols and deeply ingrained traditions. What if, Alistair, I truly do not belong here? Eli, look at me, Alistair urged, moving his chair closer to Eli's. In the past week alone, Eli, you have, with an astonishing ease, solved two incredibly complex problems that utterly stumped seasoned experts. You have unequivocally demonstrated a computational intuition that most people spend decades fruitlessly attempting to develop. Your formal background, Eli, does not in the slightest matter. It matters, Professor, to them, Eli retorted, gesturing with a sweep of his hand toward the articles. And tomorrow, Alistair, I must confront reporters who are undoubtedly going to barrage me with the exact same questions. How, Professor, do I even begin to explain that I learned advanced calculus from dusty library books? How, Professor, do I convince them without a shadow of a doubt that I am not just some cleaning young man who by sheer cosmic fluke got lucky? Alistair remained quiet for a moment, his gaze thoughtful, then stood up and walked to his overflowing bookshelf. He pulled out a thick leather-bound biography and gently handed it to Eli. Srinivasa Ramanujan, he stated, his voice hushed with reverence, one of the greatest mathematicians who ever lived. He grew up in dire poverty in India, possessed almost no formal training whatsoever, and developed the vast majority of his profound mathematical knowledge entirely independently. When he first, with a desperate hope, contacted Cambridge University, many esteemed professors contemptuously dismissed his work as merely the ramblings of an uneducated amateur. Eli slowly opened the book and gazed intently at the faded photograph of a young Indian man with intelligent, penetrating eyes and a remarkably serious expression. What professor became of him? Eli inquired, his voice barely a whisper. He was eventually, Eli recognized unequivocally, as a true genius. His groundbreaking work profoundly revolutionized number theory and continues to this very day to profoundly influence mathematics. But he was compelled to fight relentlessly for recognition every single step of the arduous way, precisely as you, Eli, are doing now. Did he, Professor, ever truly doubt himself? Eli asked, his voice filled with a quiet empathy. Constantly, Eli. He always felt profoundly like an outsider in academic circles, but he never ever ceased doing mathematics because it was fundamentally an intrinsic part of who he was. Eli slowly closed the book, holding it tightly against his chest. I am scared, Alistair, he confessed, his voice trembling slightly. I know, Eli, Alistair replied, his voice soft with understanding, but you are unequivocally not alone in this fight. President Vance unequivocally supports you. Dr. Reed has, with a newfound conviction, become your staunch advocate, and you have, most importantly, me. What, Alistair, about us? Eli inquired, finally voicing the question that had for days consumed his every thought. All this intense attention, all this immense pressure, what does it truly signify for whatever is quietly developing between us? Alistair moved back to sit intimately beside him, taking Eli's hands gently in his own. It signifies, Eli, that we must exercise extreme caution. It signifies that some individuals will undoubtedly attempt to utilize our relationship to discredit your extraordinary achievements. They will without a doubt claim that I somehow assisted you in solving the algorithms, or that I am merely showing favoritism. Perhaps we should maintain some distance, Alistair, until all of this gradually settles down. Eli suggested, though the words felt profoundly wrong as soon as he uttered them. Is that, Eli, truly what you desire? Alistair questioned, his gaze unwavering. No, Alistair, but I do not wish to provide anyone with ammunition to use against me. Eli, if we for a single moment hide our profound feelings because of what other people might choose to think, we are unequivocally allowing them to control our lives. I will not, Eli, permit that to happen, and I will not for a second ask you to do it either. Before Eli could formulate a response, there was a gentle knock on the office door. Alistair's assistant, a cheerful woman named Linda, poked her head apologetically into the room. Professor Finch, I sincerely apologize for the interruption, but there is a sizable group of students outside who are deeply desirous of meeting Mr. Hayes. Students? Eli inquired, his brow furrowed in surprise. From the robotics and engineering departments. They assert that they wish to demonstrate their unwavering support before tomorrow's momentous press conference. Alistair and Eli exchanged meaningful glances. Send them in, Linda, Alistair instructed, a genuine smile now gracing his lips. Over the next few minutes, 15 students quietly filed into the office. They were a remarkably diverse group of undergraduates and graduate students, some carrying vibrant flowers and thoughtfully homemade signs. Mr. Hayes stated, a young woman with short black hair, her voice clear and strong. I am Maria Santos, president of the Robotics Club. We earnestly wished for you to understand that not every single individual in the academic community harbors doubts about you. We believe, Mr. Hayes, that what you have so astonishingly accomplished is truly amazing, added a tall young man with glasses, his voice filled with admiration. You are, Mr. Hayes, a profound inspiration to those of us who do not originate from traditional privileged backgrounds. "I am Mr. Hayes, a first-generation college student," offered another young woman, her voice earnest. "My parents, Mr. Hayes, tirelessly worked minimum-wage jobs their entire lives. Seeing someone like you, Mr. Hayes, succeed against such odds instills in me a deep, unshakable hope that I truly belong here too." One by one, the students eloquently shared their personal stories and expressed their fervent support. Eli felt tears hot and stinging welling up in his eyes as he profoundly realized that while some esteemed professors questioned his legitimacy, the students with a clear-eyed vision perceived him as undeniable proof that brilliance could indeed emerge from anywhere. "Thank you," he managed to say, his voice thick with emotion when they had finished. "You possess absolutely no idea how profoundly this means to me." After the students, their faces glowing with admiration, finally departed, Eli sat in Alistair's office, feeling stronger, more resilient than he had felt all week. "Ready for tomorrow, Eli?" Alistair inquired softly. "Getting there, Alistair," he replied, a new resolve in his voice. "But I wish to make one thing unequivocally clear at the press conference." "What precisely is that, Eli?" Alistair asked, his brow furrowed in curiosity. "I am not, Alistair, going to apologize for who I am or from where I originate. I am not, Alistair, going to pretend that my background, my struggles do not matter. If anything, Professor, it renders my achievements more profoundly meaningful, not less so." Alistair smiled broadly. "That, Eli, is precisely the attitude that is destined to change everything." That evening, Eli returned to his small apartment and spent countless hours meticulously preparing for the impending press conference. He diligently practiced answering potentially difficult probing questions, meticulously reviewed his complex computational work, and deeply contemplated the precise message he ardently wished to convey. He was not merely representing himself tomorrow. He was with a profound sense of responsibility, representing every single person who had ever been overlooked, every brilliant mind that had ever been dismissed simply because it did not arrive with the correct credentials. Every dreamer who had ever been with cruel indifference told they did not belong. As he finally drifted off to sleep that night, Eli's thoughts turned to Ramanujan, the self-taught mathematician who had a century earlier faced remarkably similar challenges. He had persevered with an unwavering spirit, despite the pervasive doubts and ingrained prejudices of his time. Tomorrow, Eli knew with a deep certainty he would do precisely the same. The computational world, he concluded, was about to learn a profound truth that genius cares not for background, for credentials, or for preconceived expectations. It simply exists raw and undeniable, patiently waiting to be recognized and celebrated wherever it happens to appear. And Elijah Hayes was without a doubt ready to unequivocally prove it. The auditorium was packed far beyond its capacity, with a throng of eager reporters, distinguished professors, curious students, and a multitude of curious onlookers filling every available seat and lining the walls. Eli stood backstage, his heart hammering against his ribs, listening to the low murmur of the immense crowd and desperately attempting to calm his racing heart. He wore a simple, elegant black suit that Alistair had diligently helped him select, and his hair, meticulously styled into a neat fade, still felt strangely like himself. 5 minutes, Eli," President Vance announced, appearing beside him with an encouraging, reassuring smile. "How, Eli, are you truly feeling?" "Like I might at any moment throw up President Vance." Eli admitted honestly, a nervous laugh escaping him. "That, Eli, is entirely normal. Just remember, you have already accomplished the most difficult part. Today, Eli, is simply about sharing your extraordinary story." Alistair appeared on his other side looking impeccably handsome in a crisp navy suit, but with a palpable concern evident in his eyes. "You do not, Eli, have to prove anything whatsoever to these individuals." Alistair whispered, his voice low and comforting. "Just, Eli, be your authentic self." "Easy for you to assert, Alistair. You have never not once been questioned about whether you even deserve to breathe the same air as other mathematicians." Eli retorted softly, a hint of bitterness in his voice. "You are unequivocally correct, Eli." "I have not," Alistair conceded, his gaze unwavering. "But I have, Eli, watched you tirelessly work, and I know with an absolute certainty what you are truly capable of. Trust in that, Eli." President Vance then stepped gracefully up to the podium as the immense crowd slowly settled into an expectant, hushed silence. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice resonating through the auditorium, "thank you for joining us today. 3 weeks ago, a profound problem that had utterly puzzled the world's most brilliant computational mathematicians for months was by some miracle solved right here at the Acadia Institute of Technology. Today, I am profoundly pleased to formally introduce you to the truly remarkable young man who made that groundbreaking breakthrough possible, Mr. Elijah Hayes. The applause that followed was polite but undeniably cautious. As Eli walked deliberately to the podium, he surveyed the vast sea of faces, some openly curious, some undeniably skeptical, and some, he noted with a jolt, openly hostile. In the very front row, he discerned several esteemed professors from other universities who had, without apology, been vocal critics of his extraordinary story. "Thank you," he began, his voice surprisingly stronger than he felt. "I am well aware that many of you harbor pertinent questions about my identity and how I was able to so effortlessly solve the Vanguard algorithm. I am here today to answer those questions with complete and unwavering honesty." A reporter in the second row immediately raised his hand, his expression eager. "Mr. Hayes, can you please explain how an individual with absolutely no formal mathematical or computational training was able to solve a problem that so utterly stumped distinguished professors at Caltech and MIT? I may not, sir, possess formal training, but I have been diligently studying mathematics and computational science independently for over 15 years. Eli replied, his voice calm and clear. "I have meticulously read countless textbooks, assiduously followed cutting-edge research papers, and relentlessly solved problems simply because I profoundly love the subject. Intelligence, sir, does not by its very definition require a diploma." "But surely, Mr. Hayes, you comprehend why people might remain skeptical," pressed another reporter, his voice insistent. "Your story, Mr. Hayes, is quite unusual to say the least." "Unusual, sir, does not by any stretch of the imagination mean impossible." Eli retorted, his gaze firm. "History, sir, is replete with computational mathematicians and scientists who achieved groundbreaking breakthroughs despite possessing highly unconventional backgrounds. Ramanujan, Hardy, even Einstein faced considerable skepticism from the entrenched academic establishment of their time." Professor Harding from Caltech then rose abruptly from his seat in the audience, his face rigid. "Mr. Hayes, with all due academic respect, comparing yourself to Einstein seems to my mind rather presumptuous. Can you provide any concrete evidence, Mr. Hayes, that your mathematical understanding truly extends beyond merely solving a single algorithm?" Eli felt his temper, a simmering ember, suddenly flare, but he managed with immense effort to maintain a calm, measured tone. "Professor Harding, I, with your esteemed colleague, Dr. Reed's permission, solved your colleague Professor Vance's research problem last week. I have also successfully completed graduate-level coursework evaluations. But more importantly, Professor, I am here today to do mathematics and computational science, not to waste my breath attempting to convince individuals who have clearly already made up their minds about me." "That, Mr. Hayes, sounds suspiciously like deflection." Professor Harding continued, his voice challenging. "If your extraordinary abilities are unequivocally genuine, surely, Mr. Hayes, you can demonstrably prove them publicly right now." Alistair started to stand, but Eli, with a subtle motion of his hand, urged him to remain seated. Eli walked deliberately over to the large whiteboard that had been meticulously set up beside the podium. "Fine," he stated, his voice ringing with a newfound authority as he picked up a marker. "Provide me with a problem right now, in front of everyone present." The auditorium, now a palpable entity of anticipation, buzzed with an electrifying excitement. Professor Harding looked momentarily surprised, but ultimately pleased. "Very well, Mr. Hayes, I shall present you with a problem from my current research in quantum computational geometry. It involves finding the optimal entanglement points of two complex quantum states." He then approached the board and meticulously wrote out a complex equation system that caused several individuals in the audience, particularly the graduate students, to shift uncomfortably in their seats. Graduate students frantically pulled out notebooks to meticulously follow along. Eli studied the problem for a brief moment, then with quiet confidence began working. He did not utter a single word as he wrote instead, allowing his profound mathematical and computational reasoning to speak eloquently for itself. The expansive room was completely silent, save for the soft, rhythmic sound of the marker gliding across the whiteboard. 20 minutes later, he stepped back from the board. "The optimal entanglement points are located precisely here," he stated, pointing to his final, elegant answer. "The system possesses exactly 4 solutions which you can unequivocally verify using the quantum discriminant method." Professor Harding approached the board and, with a growing sense of disbelief, began meticulously checking his work. His expression as he progressed gradually transformed from an initial skepticism to a profound surprise, and finally to something closely approaching absolute awe. This is unequivocally correct," he stated quietly, his voice filled with a reluctant admiration. "And your method, Mr. Hayes, is far more elegant than the approach my team has been diligently utilizing." The auditorium erupted in a spontaneous, thunderous applause, but Eli was far from finished. He turned back to the immense crowd, his gaze sweeping over the eager faces. "I wish to say something profound to everyone here today, especially to the students who might be watching," he began, his voice imbued with a raw, undeniable emotion. "I spent 4 years meticulously cleaning these buildings, utterly invisible to the very people whose respect I so desperately craved. I diligently listened to lectures through closed doors and quietly solved homework problems from the discarded trash because I was profoundly afraid to believe that I deserved better." His voice, now resonating with an unshakable conviction, grew stronger as he continued. "But talent, ladies and gentlemen, does not care about your background. Intelligence does not for a second scrutinize your bank account or your family history. And if you possess something truly valuable to contribute to computational science, or to any field for that matter, do not under any circumstances allow anyone to convince you that you do not belong." He looked directly with an unwavering gaze at Professor Harding. "Yes, Professor, my story is undeniably unusual. Yes, Professor, I acquired mathematical and computational knowledge in highly unconventional ways, but that, Professor, does not render my contributions less valid. It renders them more profoundly important because they represent all the brilliant hidden minds we tragically overlook when we only search for genius in traditional pre-approved places." The standing ovation that followed was not merely polite or cautious. It was in its raw intensity thunderous and sustained, with students leaping enthusiastically to their feet and professors, their faces now beaming with appreciation, nodding in unison. Even Professor Harding from Caltech, who had been one of his harshest early critics, was Eli noted with a flicker of satisfaction, clapping though he appeared somewhat embarrassed. As the thunderous applause gradually subsided, a young female reporter raised her hand eagerly. "Mr. Hayes, what, sir, is next for you? What, Mr. Hayes, are your ultimate goals now that you have been so triumphantly accepted into AIT's computational science program?" "I wish to conduct good, meaningful work," Eli stated simply, his voice firm. "I wish to contribute to groundbreaking research that profoundly matters, and I wish to ensure that other individuals like me who have been overlooked know without a shadow of a doubt that the door is now unequivocally open for them too." "Is it true, Mr. Hayes, that you are currently in a romantic relationship with Professor Finch?" called out another reporter, his voice bold and intrusive. The question hung thick and heavy in the air like a direct challenge. Eli felt every single eye in the vast room turn with an intense scrutiny to him, waiting with bated breath to see how he would navigate this deeply personal intrusion. "Professor Finch," Eli began carefully choosing his words with precision, "unequivocally believed in my abilities when it seemed no one else did. He fought tirelessly for my opportunities and unwaveringly supported my most cherished dreams. Whether that relationship becomes something more profound, something romantic, is strictly between us." He looked directly at Alistair, who was, Eli noted, with a surge of warmth, smiling at him with unmistakable pride and profound affection. "But I will unequivocally state this much: I will not for a single moment apologize for caring about someone who with unparalleled insight saw my inherent worth when I was to everyone else utterly invisible." The press conference gracefully concluded with a flurry of additional questions about his future research plans and burgeoning academic goals. As the immense crowd began to gradually disperse, Eli felt a monumental weight lifting from his shoulders. He had faced his critics head-on with unwavering resolve and had unequivocally proven himself on their own terms to them all. Alistair approached the podium as the last of the reporters slowly filed out. "How, Eli, do you truly feel now?" Alistair inquired, his voice soft with understanding. "Like I can handle absolutely anything now, Alistair," Eli stated, a radiant smile illuminating his entire face. "Bring on graduate school. Bring on challenging research projects. Bring on whatever chooses to come next. What, Eli, about us? Are you ready for whatever comes next there too? Alistair asked, his gaze tender. Eli looked at this remarkable man who had so fundamentally transformed his life, who had so clearly perceived his immense potential when he was merely a cleaning young man with ambitious private dreams. I am ready for everything, Alistair. All of it. As they walked out of the auditorium together, Elijah Hayes was no longer the invisible young man who meticulously cleaned buildings at night. He was, without a doubt, a computational mathematician, a brilliant researcher, a dedicated student, and an individual who had unequivocally proven that genius could indeed emerge from anywhere. The academic world was about to learn what Alistair had known with an unwavering certainty from the very beginning, that sometimes the most profoundly brilliant minds are quietly hiding in plain sight, patiently waiting for someone brave enough to truly look and truly see. 6 months later, Eli sat confidently in the front row of an advanced neural networks lecture, diligently taking notes as Dr. Anya Sharma eloquently explained the intricate complexities of deep learning architectures around him. Graduate students some twice his age struggled valiantly to keep pace with concepts that, for Eli, came with an almost effortless, innate ease. He had remarkably completed his undergraduate requirements in record time and was now officially a graduate student at AIT. The transformation Alistair often reflected had been truly remarkable. Gone was the uncertain, hesitant young man who had meticulously cleaned these very classrooms. In his place now sat a confident, articulate scholar who contributed meaningfully to every class discussion and had already, with a stunning swiftness, co-authored 2 groundbreaking research papers with Dr. Evelyn Reed. After class, as students filed out animatedly discussing their homework assignments, Maria Santos approached Eli's desk, a bright smile on her face. "Hey, Eli, a group of us are planning to diligently study for the qualifying exams together tonight. Care to join us?" "Thanks, Maria, but I already have plans," Eli replied, packing his notebooks neatly into a sleek leather messenger bag that Alistair had given him for his birthday. "Hot date with Professor Finch?" Maria teased, a knowing smile playing on her lips. Eli laughed, a genuine joyful sound. "Actually, yes, Maria. We are going to look at apartments together." The relationship between Eli and Alistair had blossomed slowly and carefully over the past months. They had patiently waited until Eli was officially enrolled as a graduate student before making their relationship public, ardently wishing to avoid any appearance of impropriety or unfair advantage. Now, with Eli firmly established as a legitimate, respected researcher in his own undeniable right, they were both ready to embark upon the exciting next step. "That's so incredibly romantic," Maria sighed, her voice tinged with a playful wistfulness. "The brilliant professor and his genius boyfriend. It's truly like something out of a movie." "It's better than a movie, Maria," Eli stated, his voice filled with a profound conviction. "It's real." He walked across the expansive campus to Alistair's office, savoring the crisp autumn air and the vibrant changing leaves. Students called out friendly greetings as he passed, a testament to his newfound recognition. He had in a surprisingly short time become something of a low-key celebrity on campus, though he diligently tried to remain grounded and approachable. Alistair was patiently waiting for him, a stack of apartment listings in his hand, and a radiant smile that still inexplicably made Eli's heart skip a beat. "Ready to find our new home, Eli?" he inquired, standing to gently kiss him. "Our home," Eli repeated softly, relishing the profound sound of it. "I still sometimes cannot genuinely believe this is my life." They drove through the bustling city, meticulously looking at various apartments and houses, animatedly discussing the practical aspects of moving in together. While both of them diligently worked on the same campus, they had been scrupulously careful to maintain professional boundaries in their academic work, but living together, they knew, would necessitate an even greater degree of discretion and thoughtful navigation. The third apartment they visited was simply perfect. A spacious 2-bedroom place with large sun-drenched windows, elegant built-in bookshelves, and more than enough room for both of their home offices. As they stood in the empty living room, mentally furnishing it, envisioning their shared future there, Alistair pulled Eli gently into his arms. "I have something important to tell you, Eli," he stated, his voice unusually serious, a subtle tremor in his tone. "What is it, Alistair?" Eli asked, a sudden apprehension tightening his chest. "I received a call from Caltech yesterday. They wish to offer you a full fellowship for their doctoral program. Eli felt his stomach plummet, a sudden dizzying sensation. Full funding, extensive research opportunities, unparalleled access to some of the finest computational mathematicians in the entire world. Eli's voice was a barely audible whisper. Caltech wants me. They want you very much, Eli. It is without question an incredible once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, the kind of chance most computational mathematicians only ever dream about their entire careers. But what, Alistair, about us? What about AIT? Eli questioned, his voice thick with a sudden anxiety. I am finally settled here, finally comfortable. Alistair remained quiet for a long moment, looking out the window at the bustling city below. Eli, I believe you should, with utmost seriousness, consider it. Are you, Alistair, attempting to rid yourself of me? Eli inquired, attempting with a strained effort to keep his tone light, despite the pervasive fear growing steadily in his chest. Never, Eli. But I love you far too deeply to permit you to pass up an opportunity of this magnitude because of me. And what, Alistair, would you do? Would you, Alistair, come with me? Eli asked, his voice raw with vulnerability. I do not know, Eli. My life, my research, my tenure-track position, all of it is here. But Eli, this is not in its essence about me. This, Eli, is profoundly about your future, your career, your immense potential. They spent the entire evening walking through the vibrant city, animatedly discussing possibilities and confronting deep-seated fears. The Caltech offer represented in its full scope everything Eli had never once dared to dream of: unequivocal recognition from the most prestigious computational science program in the entire country, resources far beyond anything AIT could ever hope to offer, and the truly unique chance to work directly with legendary figures in his chosen field. But it also undeniably meant leaving behind everything he had meticulously built at AIT, his deeply cherished relationship with Alistair, his growing friendships with students like Maria, the comfortable, stable life he was finally creating for himself. What does your heart, Eli, tell you? Alistair inquired gently as they sat together on a bench overlooking the tranquil river. My heart, Alistair, tells me that a mere year ago I was diligently cleaning toilets, and now Caltech wishes for me to be a doctoral student. Eli confessed, a tremor in his voice. My heart, Alistair, tells me that is impossible and wonderfully miraculous and utterly terrifying all at the same time. And what, Eli, does it tell you about us? Alistair probed softly. Eli turned to face him fully, his gaze unwavering. It tells me, Alistair, that I love you, that you transform my life in ways that possess absolutely nothing to do with mathematics or computational science. That losing you, Alistair, would be akin to losing an intrinsic part of myself. A heavy sigh escaped him. But I also know, Alistair, that if I do not seize this unparalleled opportunity, I might with time regret it for the rest of my life, and eventually, Alistair, I might with bitterness resent you for being the reason I chose to stay. Alistair nodded slowly, his expression solemn. I have, Eli, been contemplating the exact same thing. They sat in silence, watching the slow, almost hypnotic movement of boats gliding down the river. Finally, Alistair spoke again, his voice firm with a newfound resolve. What if, Eli, I were to apply for a visiting researcher position at Caltech? It is, I concede, a long shot, but I could, Eli, attempt to arrange something for next year. You would, Alistair, genuinely do that? Eli whispered, his voice filled with disbelief. Leave your esteemed position here for me. I would, Eli, do absolutely anything for you, Alistair affirmed, his voice resolute. Eli felt tears, hot and stinging, welling up in his eyes. Alistair, I require some time, a considerable amount of time, to meticulously contemplate this. It is a monumental decision. Of course, Eli. Take all the time you need. Alistair replied, his voice gentle. That night, Eli lay awake in his small apartment, staring intently at the ceiling and meticulously weighing his options. On his modest nightstand lay the Caltech offer letter, thick with overwhelming possibilities and enticing promises. Across town, Alistair was in all likelihood also lying awake, wrestling with the same impossible choice. The next morning, Eli found himself walking almost instinctively through the robotics building, where everything had so miraculously begun. He stopped outside Advanced Robotics Lab 7B, now utterly empty, save for the gentle morning light streaming through the expansive windows. The whiteboard had been meticulously erased countless times since that fateful night he had solved the Vanguard algorithm, but he could still, with remarkable clarity, vividly picture his small, elegant solution meticulously written in the corner. Second thoughts. Eli. Eli turned, startled to find Dr. Reed approaching her usual morning coffee clutched in her hand. Something like that? Dr. Reed? Eli replied, his voice soft. Dr. Reed, may I venture to ask you something deeply personal? Of course, Eli. Dr. Reed replied, her expression softening. When you were my age, Dr. Reed, did you ever find yourself compelled to choose between love and career? Dr. Reed smiled knowingly, a rare, genuine smile. Ah, the Caltech offer. Alistair informed me about it yesterday. He is Eli, quite torn up about the entire predicament. What, Doctor? Reed, would you, in my precise situation, genuinely do? Eli inquired, desperate for guidance. That, Eli, is simply not a fair question. When I was your age, Eli, I did not possess your extraordinary talent or your unparalleled opportunities. But I can, Eli, unequivocally tell you this much. Regret, Eli, is an incredibly heavy burden to bear throughout one's life. Regret about which choice, though? Dr. Reed, that is precisely what I cannot for the life of me figure out. Eli confessed, his voice filled with a desperate frustration. Perhaps, Eli, the true question is not whether to choose love or career, but rather whether you can, with ingenuity and determination, find a profound way to embrace both. Dr. Reed's wise words resonated deeply within Eli, staying with him throughout the entire day as he diligently attended classes and immersed himself in his research. That evening, he made a monumental decision, one that remarkably surprised even himself. He contacted Caltech and with a newfound confidence requested a meeting with the department head. 2 days later, Eli sat composed and determined in a conference room at Caltech directly across from Dr. Angela Rodriguez, one of the most highly respected computational mathematicians in the entire country. Dr. Rodriguez was a petite woman with streaks of elegant silver in her dark hair and eyes that Eli noted missed absolutely nothing. Mr. Hayes, I must confess your request for this meeting was quite unusual. Most students would simply accept or decline our offer without further negotiation. I am not Dr. Rodriguez. Most students, Eli replied with a quiet confidence that would have utterly shocked his former invisible self. No, Mr. Hayes, you most certainly are not. Dr. Rodriguez conceded, a flicker of admiration in her eyes. Your groundbreaking work on the Vanguard algorithm and your subsequent research have been without question truly remarkable. That, Mr. Hayes, is precisely why we are so eager to have you here at Caltech. Dr. Rodriguez, I am profoundly honored by your generous offer. Truly. Eli began, his voice sincere. But I have, Dr. Rodriguez, a unique proposition for you. I am listening intently, Mr. Hayes. Do proceed. Dr. Rodriguez prompted, leaning back in her chair intrigued. Professor Alistair Finch at the Acadia Institute of Technology. He has conducted groundbreaking work in complex AI architecture and has been, Dr. Rodriguez, my invaluable mentor and esteemed research partner. If Caltech were to offer him a visiting researcher position, Dr. Rodriguez, you would in essence secure both of us. You are Mr. Hayes, negotiating as a package deal. Dr. Rodriguez inquired, a hint of amusement in her voice. I am suggesting, Dr. Rodriguez, that sometimes the most profound mathematical and computational breakthroughs emerge from genuine synergistic collaboration. Alistair and I, Dr. Rodriguez, work exceptionally well together. Our respective research approaches, Dr. Rodriguez, beautifully complement each other. Separately, Dr. Rodriguez, we are both highly competent computational mathematicians. Together, Dr. Rodriguez, we could be truly exceptional. Dr. Rodriguez remained quiet for a long moment, intently studying Eli with a new profound interest. Mr. Hayes, do you genuinely realize the unique position you are in to make such demands? Your burgeoning reputation alone would be more than sufficient to secure your admission here. I am not, Dr. Rodriguez, making demands. I am proposing a mutually beneficial solution that I believe benefits everyone involved. Eli countered calmly. And if, Dr. Rodriguez, we cannot accommodate Professor Finch, then I must, with all due respect, respectfully decline your generous offer and continue my important work at AIT. Dr. Rodriguez smiled, a genuine wide smile that illuminated her face, the first since the meeting had begun. Mr. Hayes, you possess more nerve than most tenured professors I know. I find that quality, Mr. Hayes, most admirable. Is that Dr. Rodriguez a yes? Eli asked, a hopeful tremor in his voice. It is Mr. Hayes a maybe. Allow me to make some calls and ascertain what we can meticulously arrange. A week later, Eli sat quietly in Alistair's office as Alistair meticulously read through a letter that had arrived that morning. I cannot, Eli, believe you accomplished this, Alistair stated, looking up at him with a mixture of awe and amazement. Did it, Alistair, work? Eli inquired, his heart pounding. Caltech Eli is offering me a 2-year visiting researcher position with the distinct possibility of a permanent appointment based on performance. Alistair announced, his voice filled with disbelief. How, Eli, did you manage to convince them? I merely told them the unvarnished truth, Alistair, that we are profoundly better together than apart. Eli replied simply. Alistair stood up and moved from behind his desk to pull Eli gently into his arms. Eli, do you genuinely realize you just turned down one of the most prestigious programs in the entire country to negotiate for something that might unequivocally not have worked? I possessed unwavering faith that it would work, Alistair. Eli stated, his voice firm. What, Eli, if it hadn't? Alistair questioned softly. Then, Alistair, we would have simply found another way. Eli replied, his voice resolute. Alistair, I did not fight this arduous, challenging fight to become a computational mathematician just to, in the process, relinquish the very best part of my entire life. They kissed, their embrace bathed in the warm afternoon light streaming through his office window, and Eli felt the very last piece of his new, incredible life clicking effortlessly into place. He was remarkably going to Caltech as a doctoral student. Alistair would be accompanying him as a visiting researcher. They would continue their groundbreaking work together while concurrently building a life together. So, Alistair, we are truly embarking on this? Alistair inquired, his voice filled with a hopeful anticipation, moving to Boston, starting over together. We are doing this, Alistair, though I possess one singular condition, Eli stated playfully. Name it, Eli. Alistair replied, a grin spreading across his face. The very first apartment we choose to look at in Boston had better possess far superior bookshelves than this place, Alistair. Eli insisted, a teasing glint in his eye. Alistair laughed, spinning him around joyfully in his arms. I love you, Elijah Hayes. I love your unparalleled brilliance, your unwavering courage, and your utterly unreasonable negotiating skills. I love you too, Alistair Finch. Eli replied, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you, Alistair, for genuinely seeing me when I was utterly invisible. Thank you, Alistair, for allowing me to be an integral part of your truly incredible story. As they stood together in the office where their profound relationship had so unexpectedly begun, Eli contemplated how dramatically everything had changed in less than a year. He had transformed from cleaning buildings to negotiating with prestigious academic institutions like Caltech. He had transitioned from being utterly invisible to being widely recognized as one of the most promising young computational mathematicians in the entire country. But most importantly, he had learned with a profound clarity that he did not have to choose between his cherished dreams and the deepest desires of his heart. Sometimes, with a sufficient amount of courage and an abundant measure of creativity, he could miraculously have both. The future Eli realized stretched ahead of them, brimming with exciting research possibilities, thrilling academic adventures, and the profound promise of building a shared life together that honored both their professional aspirations and their personal happiness. Mathematics and computational science had undeniably brought them together, but love, Eli knew with a deep certainty, would carry them forward into whatever came next. 1 year later, Eli stood confidently at the front of a spacious lecture hall at Caltech, his gaze sweeping over a classroom full of bright undergraduate students, meticulously taking notes during his Introduction to Neural Networks course. It was his very first time teaching as the primary instructor, and he still felt the familiar flutter of nervous excitement that invariably accompanied new challenging experiences. Today, we are going to delve into the fascinating world of prime numbers. He began, his voice clear, confident, and resonant. Who among you can elucidate what precisely makes a number prime? Several eager hands shot up around the room. As he called on students and patiently guided them through the stimulating discussion, Eli marveled at how profoundly natural teaching felt to him. A mere year ago, he had been humbly sitting in classrooms as a dedicated student. Now he was with a deep sense of fulfillment, sharing his hard-won knowledge with the very next generation of brilliant computational mathematicians. His doctoral work at Caltech had without exception exceeded everyone's expectations, including his very own. The groundbreaking research he had initially begun at AIT with Dr. Reed had with a natural progression evolved into a profound dissertation that was already generating considerable excitement within the computational science community. He had presented highly regarded papers at international conferences, published his findings in prestigious journals, and earned the unequivocal respect of esteemed colleagues who had once, without a second thought, doubted his extraordinary abilities. But perhaps even more importantly, he had, through his unique journey, found his powerful voice as an unwavering advocate for students from non-traditional backgrounds. He regularly spoke with passion and conviction at high schools located in underserved communities, earnestly encouraging young people to pursue their dreams in mathematics and computational science, regardless of their challenging circumstances. The Elijah Hayes Foundation, which he had judiciously established with the substantial prize money from solving the Vanguard algorithm, provided invaluable scholarships and dedicated mentoring for first-generation college students who harbored a fervent interest in STEM fields. After class, Eli walked purposefully across the expansive campus to the bustling coffee shop where he was scheduled to meet Alistair for lunch. The Boston autumn was crisp and exquisitely beautiful, with leaves turning brilliant fiery shades of orange and red. Students hurried past their backpacks slung casually over their shoulders, engrossed in lively conversation, and Eli felt a profound sense of gratitude to be an integral part of this vibrant, intellectually stimulating academic community. He found Alistair already seated at their usual preferred table, diligently grading papers and looking, as always, impeccably handsome in the casual yet sophisticated professor style that never failed to make Eli's heart, even now, give a little skip. Alistair's visiting researcher position had been so profoundly successful that Caltech had, with great enthusiasm, offered him a permanent faculty position, which he had eagerly accepted. "How was class, Eli?" Alistair inquired, looking up from his papers as Eli approached, his eyes warm. "Good, Alistair. I believe I am finally getting the hang of this teaching thing." Eli confessed a proud smile on his face. Eli slid into the seat directly across from him and with a playful gesture stole a sip of Alistair's coffee. "How is your paper progressing, Alistair?" "Almost finished, Eli. Dr. Rodriguez believes it might be ready for submission to the Journal of Computational Mathematics next month." They chatted comfortably about their respective work, effortlessly falling into the familiar, comforting rhythm of two individuals who had, through shared effort and mutual understanding, learned to beautifully balance their professional and personal lives successfully. The challenges of the past year, adjusting to new academic pressures, diligently building reputations at a prestigious institution, and meticulously maintaining their relationship under the ever-present scrutiny of the computational science community, had only Eli realized profoundly strengthened their already deep partnership. "I have something important to tell you, Eli," Alistair stated, his voice suddenly serious as they finished eating. "Good something, Alistair, or bad something?" Eli inquired, a touch of apprehension in his voice. "Definitely good something, Eli. I received a call from President Vance at AIT this morning. They wish to name the new computational science building after you." Eli nearly choked on his coffee, his eyes wide with disbelief. "They wish to what, Alistair?" "The Elijah Hayes Computational Science Center. Construction is slated to commence next summer." Eli stammered, overwhelmed. That's truly incredible, Alistair, but also terrifying. Having an entire building named after you feels, Alistair, very permanent. You have, Eli, unequivocally earned it. Your inspiring story has profoundly inspired hundreds of students to pursue computational science." Alistair affirmed, his voice filled with pride. "The widespread publicity from your groundbreaking discovery and your tireless advocacy work has, Eli, brought millions of dollars in generous donations to computational science programs across the entire country." Eli shook his head in absolute amazement. "Sometimes, Alistair, I still cannot genuinely believe this is my life. Believe it, Eli. You changed everything, Eli, not merely for yourself, but for every single individual who comes after you." As they walked back across the expansive campus, Alistair suddenly stopped abruptly in front of a small, secluded garden tucked charmingly between two academic buildings. "There's something else, Eli," he stated, his voice noticeably different now, a nervous excitement interwoven with tenderness. "Alistair, you are genuinely making me worried," Eli whispered, his heart beginning to pound. Instead of answering, Alistair gracefully dropped to one knee and with a flourish, pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Eli's heart stopped completely as he realized with a rush of profound emotion what was about to transpire. Elijah Hayes, Alistair, began, his voice filled with profound emotion, opening the box to reveal a beautiful, dazzling solitaire diamond ring. You brilliantly solved the impossible algorithm that first brought us together. You have, with unparalleled grace and determination, solved every single challenge that has come your way since then. Now, my dear Eli, I have one more profound problem for you to meticulously solve. Alistair. Eli whispered, tears already blurring his vision. The problem, Eli, is this. How can we unequivocally ensure that we spend the rest of our lives diligently working on computational science together, meticulously building a family together, and gracefully solving whatever impossible algorithms and equations life chooses to throw at us together? Is this, Alistair, your unique way of proposing to me with a math problem? Eli asked, a joyous laugh escaping him through his tears. It is, Eli, my way of fervently asking if you will with all your heart marry me and permit me to be your research partner for life. Eli looked down at this wonderful, compassionate man who had, with such unwavering belief, seen his immense potential when he was merely an invisible, cleaning young man with grand private dreams. The ring sparkled brilliantly in the warm autumn sunlight, and students passing by had begun to stop, captivated, to watch the extraordinary scene unfolding. The answer is, Alistair, unequivocally yes, Eli stated, laughing softly through his tears. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Alistair gently slipped the sparkling ring onto his finger and stood to kiss him, his lips tender and full of promise as the gathered students erupted into a thunderous applause. Someone spontaneously started chanting, "Dr. Hayes, Dr. Hayes." And soon the entire crowd, with a joyful fervor, had joined in. As they stood together enveloped by cheering students and the gentle fall of autumn leaves, Eli contemplated the incredible journey that had brought them irrevocably to this profound moment. 2 years ago, he had been merely a cleaning young man with secret cherished dreams. Now he was, without a doubt, Dr. Elijah Hayes, a respected computational mathematician, a brilliant researcher, a dedicated teacher, an unwavering advocate, and soon to be husband to the man who had, with such unwavering belief, helped make it all miraculously possible. "So, Alistair, what precisely is next for us?" he inquired, his voice filled with a joyful anticipation echoing the words he had spoken after his first press conference. "Everything, Eli," Alistair replied, his gaze loving and profound. "Exciting research projects, thrilling teaching adventures, perhaps someday some little computational mathematicians of our very own." "Little computational mathematicians, Alistair?" Eli mused, a playful glint in his eye. "Why not, Eli? They will without a doubt possess the very best genetics for it." Eli laughed, a pure, unadulterated happiness bubbling up from somewhere deep within his chest. "I love you, Alistair Finch. I love you too, soon to be Dr. Elijah Hayes Finch." Alistair corrected playfully, his voice filled with profound affection. That evening, they joyfully called their friends and family to share the exhilarating news. President Vance at AIT was absolutely delighted and immediately offered to host their wedding reception in the new computational science building, the one soon to be named in Eli's honor. Dr. Reed sent a heartfelt congratulatory email filled with intricate algorithms that, when meticulously solved, spelled out congratulations in a playful tribute. Even Professor Harding from Caltech, who had been one of Eli's harshest early critics, sent a surprisingly warm note, acknowledging his profound contributions to the field and sincerely wishing them both happiness. As they sat together in their Boston apartment that night, surrounded by weighty computational journals and glossy wedding planning magazines, Eli reflected on the intricate algorithm that had so unexpectedly started everything. The Vanguard algorithm had been deemed utterly unsolvable until he had approached it with fresh, unburdened eyes and an entirely unconventional perspective. Perhaps, he mused, that was the true profound lesson of his remarkable story. Sometimes the most impossible problems possess the most elegantly simple solutions. Sometimes the greatest, most groundbreaking discoveries emerge from the most unexpected places and individuals. And sometimes love and professional success are not competing equations to be solved separately, but rather complementary variables intricately intertwined within a larger, beautiful formula for profound happiness. The genius-cleaning young man had, against all odds, become Dr. Elijah Hayes. But more importantly, he had, with unwavering authenticity, become precisely who he was always intrinsically meant to be. The impossible he knew with a deep, calm certainty had become inevitable, and the future stretched ahead of them like an exhilarating, unsolved equation, patiently waiting for their combined brilliance to unlock its countless secrets. In computational science and in love, Eli had learned that the most beautiful, elegant solutions are often the very ones that seemed utterly impossible until someone brave enough to truly try made them undeniably real. The world, Eli concluded, was brimming with impossible equations, patiently waiting to be solved, and Dr. Elijah Hayes Finch was without a doubt ready for all of them.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.